development, hardware development, and digital content. So yes, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks a lot, Mia. Great. And I see also Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc, you want to introduce the Baobab Incubator?
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hey,
so the Baobab Incubator, in partnership with the company I actually work for, is Black Box Durban. But Baobab and Black Box Durban have a close partnership. And Baobab Durban really focuses on sustainability projects and has an incredible philosophy around just reusing and reducing and recycling, and an incredible waste projects. That's Baobab. And Black Box, we're a product design company based out of Durban, and we focus on civic tech. And I think that's a good introduction of both companies in a nutshell.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jean-Luc. And you can see here for our guest speakers the incubators logo and universities who are joining and taking part to this program. Who maybe would like to introduce Texnovation? Maybe I see Kanayo is here for Texnovation.
Morning,
Hi,
everyone. Hi there. My name is Kanayo. I'm a student incubator at Texnovation, which is a technology incubator right here at the University of Pretoria in Tshwane. I'm part of a group of students here. The Texnovation team is working on what you call it, renewable energy and and the waste management, how do I say, industries, to see if we can create any products that would be useful for the Blue Ocean Corner in the Blue Ocean Corners context. And then, yeah.
Thanks a lot, Kanayo. Great. And maybe someone to introduce UNISA, University of South Africa. Everybody knows this great university. We have maybe a coach or an entrepreneur who would like to introduce the UNISA. Who's from the UNISA? Sorry, I don't remember well. Maybe Matoke, I think maybe you are from the UNISA, no? Am I right?
Hi, Alban.
Hey,
No, I'm
no?
From the city of Tshwane.
Ah, the city of Tshwane. Yeah, but you can also say a few words about city of Tshwane. No, you don't want to introduce city of Tshwane? But okay, sorry, because it's the same group, UNISA, city of Tshwane, and TUT also. Tshwane University of Technology, you are in the same group of entrepreneurs for this program.
You want us to introduce our project?
Okay, so if you word about your project, if you want.
Yeah, I can just make a summary of our project here. So we're from the group City of Tshwane. The industry that we have chosen, me and my partner, Mpho Mufukeng, we chose the industry of housing, where we want to bridge the gap on the market to provide the access for housing for people who don't afford the free houses from the government. At the same time, they can't afford, what is it called? The bond house, either because maybe they're on contract employment, short-term contracts, and then the bank sees them as a higher risk to provide them the bond house, but they also don't earn so little that they can afford or they can obtain the free housing from the government. So yes, we have done a couple of interviews. We'll be getting that chance there to present what we have found out from the market, what those non-customers or customers are, what are their pain points and then their key needs. So I don't know what time will that arrive where we'll be able to discuss that further. But yeah, basically that's what we do in the housing industry. Yeah,
great. Yeah, we will, I will share soon the agenda right now. It's in this afternoon, we'll have all the afternoon workshop, and we'll share this. We'll continue to share because we already started with some groups yesterday to share this exploration result. Thanks a lot, Matoke. So we will jump to the agenda today. We have today, so our agenda today is welcome, of course, it's here. We will start with our guest speakers about different industries: agriculture, waste, water management, distribution, and having a focus on maybe these 6 paths: alternative, decision chain, trends, and then a pause, synthesis. And we'll have at 11:15 synthesis of the inspiration with Lyal, is also a teacher, a professor in Johannesburg Business School. The lunch pause, and all the afternoon it will be the ideation workshop. We hope that you will have everything you need to start the ideation workshop. Normally, yes. And then we'll have at 5 tips sharing for the entrepreneurs about entrepreneurship by a very great entrepreneur. He's the founder of Anti-Cafe. He's like the French Elon Musk, I would say. So just like a chat, a discussion with him for 1 hour to conclude the day today. I will let also Jason and George introduce themselves. Yes. Hi, Jason.
Yeah, I think pretty much introduced myself several times now, but I'll do it again. Jason Hunter.
It's for our guest, so it's for
okay. Jason Hunter, I've worked with Blue Ocean Strategy for quite some time at INSEAD, American, but live in Spain. And actually my history working in South Africa is much longer, to be honest. I started as a student there, and look forward to continuing the journey.
Thanks, Jason. And George from India.
Good morning. My name is George Epen. Oh, am I? No, I'm not.
Yeah, it's okay.
I've actually been working at INSEAD with Jason also since around 99, in fact. I used to run an executive education, and with Jason, we started a company that uses Blue Ocean for in-company workshops, which we've done all over the world. And I've been involved with Albon for a couple of years and Corners since it started. That's it, I think.
Yeah, thanks, George. So let's start right now to introduce our speakers, our guest speakers we have today. I don't know if Pinky is here. Not yet. Not seen her for now. And first Arnaud Blanchet, former winner of the Blue Ocean Awards, one of the winners of the South African Blue Ocean Awards on the French founder side, and Pinky was for the South African founders. This on 2021. Hi Arnaud.
Good morning. How are you? Can you hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Perfect. So yeah, I'm the founder of SHOPIT, and SHOPIT is a solution that enable supermarkets and wholesalers based in township to offer really upmarket online store for their customers. And we also provide a marketplace that enable informal grocery stores to renew their stock without having to leave their store. And the aim of both our activities is to improve the distribution of products and services in low-income communities and make sure that people can access what they need to live a good life.
Thanks. I think it will be very interesting to have your inspiration, and your vision about the distribution in South Africa and also small markets, and I think it will be very local markets. It will be very interesting. And we have Chad from VEOLIA. Hi,
Good
Chad.
morning, all. Chad Lawrence here. So I currently work in a position as a business development manager at VEOLIA Services Southern South Africa. And one of my primary objectives is to look into ways where we basically analyze and determine VEOLIA best practice solutions focus around sustainable production and asset management from a water, waste, as well as energy perspective. With the ever increasing demands on water consumption, as well as the costs related to it, that in conjunction with high energy utilization and waste management, we have seen significant traction within these spheres as our customers are much more driven and focused to produce in a much more sustainable manner.
Thanks a lot, Chad. And we have now Valéry, investor, co-founder of FORSEA Invest. Hi, Valéry. Valéry, maybe you are muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Can hear you.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm a Swiss and French digital entrepreneur. I also have a French accent, so I probably.
And you live in Malta.
I live in Malta. I've been living in Malta for 16 years, but I travel a lot all over Europe. I was a digital entrepreneur, and for the last couple of years, I'm now an impact business angel. And I'm as well a strategic advisor at Ocean Hub Africa. So I don't know if everyone around the table knows Ocean Hub Africa. It's a non-profit company based in Cape Town. So it's close from where you are, guys. And it accelerates innovative, impact-driven startups in order to protect the oceans. So if you don't know about it, I invite you to go and have a look on our site, oceanhub.africa.
Okay, nice. Great, thanks. I think it would be very nice to have your investor point of view and for this sharing session. Very nice to have you. And we have, of course, Stephen Lyal from VEOLIA. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, morning, everybody. So I'm the general manager for the chemical business unit of VEOLIA across Africa. I'm a passionate scuba diver. So I dive across South Africa in some of the most beautiful dive sites around, as well as up in Mozambique. And I've traveled to Egypt, to the Red Sea. I've traveled to Thailand. So I've dived in some amazing places. So I have a passion and a vested interest in the quality of ocean. So Valéry, I'll be very interested to see what you guys do and maybe partner and do some work with you guys. But generally, VEOLIA is the champion of ecological transformation. That's the sort of new focus for VEOLIA going over the next couple of years. We are the largest water, energy, waste management company in the world. We've just procured one of the biggest competitors, Suez, to become now, a giant of the industry. So yeah, we manipulate water and waste to solve our clients' problems. So yeah, I'll be happy to try and impart some knowledge and share some experience with this group.
Great, thanks a lot, Stephen. So maybe Pinky will join us later. We'll let you know. So here we have, you see, a very good panel, very nice panel, very interesting. Just to let you know about which field we think it will be, you can inspire, on which field you can inspire the entrepreneurs today. You know, because they are still looking, is still describing and searching using this 6-pass model framework, and they are working on these industries, also with housing. Yeah, it's missing here, housing. So with Matoke group, here we think with our panel we have here this morning, we could have a focus on sustainability, waste management, agriculture, distribution, and maybe on this time trend, so where these industries are going in terms of trends for in the next 10, 20 years, for sociology, in terms of evolution of the society, in economics, in technologies. Second path we could explore, it's alternative industry, which are these alternatives on these industries, and especially we are talking about non-customers, people who are currently excluded or not using or not considered as clients by these industries, and they are using something else, an alternative. And the third path we could explore, it's a decision chain. It's all the people involved in the final decision to buy or to use this or this offering on these industries. So it can be influencers, prescribers, it can be the final user, it can be. Yeah. So do you feel, maybe we can start by time trends, it can be, it's maybe easier. And do you feel inspired? The objective, yeah, just to give you the format, it's a ping pong exchange. It's a discussion, open discussion. So yeah, we are sitting with a cup of coffee and we are discussing about the future, about these industries, where they are going, and how to change the world, because we want to change the world, yeah, with the Blue Ocean strategy. We want to break the rules. Okay, so who would like to start?
I can start. I can start if you want. I mean, it's always such a great opportunity to be able to talk to entrepreneurs, because it's quite rare, and there's something quite general I'd like to say before we get into every subject, is like the rhythm of innovation in the last 70 years has been unprecedented, and of course we cannot complain about it because most of us would benefit from it. But the issue is that all innovation brings negative externalities. I'll take a simple example. When you invent the plane, well, at the same time, you invent the plane crash. So for the last 70 years, we acted like our new way of living and consuming had absolutely zero negative externalities, which of course is not true. And unfortunately for all of us, the challenge of our time is to innovate in order to reduce or even to stop those negative externalities. So as an entrepreneur, our responsibility is huge. And as a young entrepreneur, your responsibility is even bigger, because you're the first generation of entrepreneurs that is fully aware of this situation. I'm 49 years old. When I started working, I was definitely not aware of this. So you're the first one to know about this, but you're also the last generation of entrepreneurs that can really make a change, because all the scientists now agree on the fact that in something like more or less 30 years, it's going to be too late. So depending on your personal life philosophy, it can be seen both as a terrible burden or an amazing opportunity. And I must admit, someday I'm not sure which one I'm picking, because it's not fun. It's not fun, but it's there. And so we need to disrupt most existing markets. consumers tomorrow and already today, they want to start buying more respectful product and services for the environment and for their health, because now they understand that if they live in a destructive environment, it's going to destroy their health as well. So in the next couple of decades, so many startups will become huge companies. And I think far more than at any time in our history. And I think this is where there's a big link between what I'm doing and what we're talking about, Alban is talking about today, and we're here, is that there's going to be blue oceans everywhere in the near future, and it's an amazing opportunity. And this, if you get involved, and I've seen that a lot of you actually already are involved in impact, but if you get involved in impact, it will most probably be good for the planet, but it might as well be very good for your future assets as well. And so there's an alignment between everyone's interest there. And I wanted to point this out very clearly, because I think it's I think it's very important that we're all aligned on this.
I think so, Valéry. So what do you think? Maybe propose one of the key time trend you see, on your sustainability, water and waste management, and then Arnaud and Chad and Stephen can react.
So, I'm sorry.
Can you share one of the big time trend you see coming in this sustainability or water and waste management?
There's going to be so much. I mean, hydrogen is a big one, for example.
Sorry.
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen, yeah.
Yes, is a big one.
Yeah, sure.
It's a big one, but it's a difficult subject, as there are 3 different types of hydrogen. So we're aiming for the blue hydrogen, not the green, not the gray, which I mean, it started to be a bit technical, but.
And you have a second one, maybe less technical, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if someone wants to start talking about this one, because there's already so much to say about this one before we throw another one.
Okay. So maybe, VEOLIA's team maybe want to react on that, on the hydrogen trend. Is it something big for you coming here? Chad and Stephen.
Just to add on Alban and team, what we've been seeing significant traction on is more or less waste management, or rather the conversion of waste to alternative energy sources. To give you an example, the conversion of organic waste to biomethane. We've seen a significant traction, particularly concentrated within the food and beverage market. A lot of these corporate conglomerates are looking at alternative energy sources on account of the limited power availability within the SS sphere, as well as the cost orientated around that as well. So that's where we've been seeing significant traction.
If I can just add on the hydrogen issue. So as some of you, most of you who have been involved in South Africa and the history of South Africa, Sasol was developed in the 1960s by the apartheid government, when they could see that they would be cut off from fuel supplies. So they obviously developed this technology to manufacture fuel from coal, because we had plenty of coal, but we didn't have, the oil. So what Sasol is now doing is they are changing, and they are firstly changing their personnel. They're looking at people that are younger generation, and they are going to be converting to hydrogen energy. And probably in the next 10, 15 years, you won't see any fuel being manufactured from coal. It'll be the fuel will be hydrogen based. So they will still manufacture some of the other chemistries and the plastics, the ethanols, the solvents, the ethylenes, the tar, but the main production for fuel will be hydrogen based.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. And feel free, coaches, Jason, George, of course, everybody, you feel free to react and ask a question. Of course, it's open discussion. Entrepreneurs, you can also ask your question in the chat and also open your microphone to ask question. So yeah, in terms of time trends, maybe Arnaud, do you see something about, like Stephen just shared, from organic waste? I'm sure the distribution, local market, local groceries, they have certainly, they are concerned maybe by that.
So I think for the moment, what we see currently, and I hope it's not a future trend, but what we see is that the considerations that our customers might have are quite far from recycling. We see a lot of plastic in the townships that are recycled in a way, but the waste management is still a big thing to sort and to solve there. And the consumer themselves are not, let's say it's not one of their highest priority. There's a lot of things that needs to be solved for them to have a better life before they actually care about the environment directly. It doesn't mean that no one cares about it, but I would say that it's not a trend as much as it can be in other part of the world. What we can see though is that this trend could come to these low-income markets through the brands and the manufacturers that now have to follow some rules or laws to try to reduce waste. And we worked last year on a project with Unilever to try to actually replace some of the packaging that is used for washing powder. So today it's a soft plastic that is that has a unique use, and the aim is to make sure that we can use reusable buckets that people could return. So I think that is one of the trend from a low-income communities perspective, and probably low tech. We're not talking about producing hydrogen here, but just shifting a bit the way we see packaging and the way it's used. It will also require less energy if we don't need to produce that much packaging. So that's, I would say, one of the trends that we can see today in the business that we're operating in, is a push mainly from manufacturers that will push all the supply chain to go to more reusable packaging, or at least try to reduce waste.
Yeah, I've seen recently a couple of startups who are, for example, a company like Beauty Disrupted. It's a company that is trying to not to use any more plastic in bathrooms. So they're doing shampoo, they're doing shaving cream, they're aiming to do everything. And because they have no continents, it's just basically hard soap, hard shampoo, hard after shampoo, hard toothpaste, toothbrush, whatever, you know, all the things that you can imagine. They well, there's no more plastic in the bathroom, so there's no more waste. If you don't buy something with plastic around, we won't have the issue of trying to know what to do with the plastic afterwards.
Yeah, Jean-Luc.
Yes, I think that's a topic that I'm particularly passionate about, the consumer behavior trend, and the pressure that's going to be put on by consumers on these things. But I think as Arnaud has said, and that this can be pushed by manufacturers as well. So there can be a push from manufacturers, and there can be a push from consumer behavior to change the way we consume. And I think the incredible strides being made in smaller pockets, but I think those pockets of change makers towards consuming more ethically and more responsibly are growing. And I think that's the time trend that I'm most interested in, is that consumer behavior. And it's fantastic to see that Unilever and are looking at ideas like that.
I think the big challenge for the consumers is that they shouldn't lose anything. If the quality of the product is not as good for a shampoo, for example, a hard shampoo, if you have the impression that it's not as good as your usual shampoo, people will not change. So this is where innovation is key. And this is why I like this company that I mentioned, Beauty Disruptor. You can go and have a look on it. Is that before launching the company, they worked quite a lot into making sure that the quality of the product would be exactly the same or even better than some of the product that's on the market right now. And we should really understand that people will not change just for the planet. They will change if they don't have to make an effort, which is, it's a fact, unfortunately.
Yeah, sure. People are lazy and they want to keep the value they had before and maybe having more. We were talking also about energy. We have a very interesting question on the chat by Tumelang about is asking if you think that biofuel market with using sustainable aviation fuel like as clean substitute for fossil jet fuels and also fuel coming from the agriculture will be something big. You think it's ready for this industry, or it will be a slow adoption? Maybe, yeah.
I'll go back to what I said previously. I think the big revolution for transportation will come from hydrogen. It's going to be a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So they might have it's like electric cars are great for now because it's better than using normal fuel. You might find other sources, but if you look long term, the ultimate one is most probably the hydrogen.
And the engineer's point of view?
So I'm not an engineer in any way, but I just want to bring another aspect to what the future may hold, is that in Africa in general, we're talking about over 1.2 billion people, and 8 million of them are actually low-income consumer, or even a large proportion of them have less than $2 per day. So I think the reality of the future that we'll have in Africa might not come from high-end electric car or hydrogen solution for the moment, because hydrogen vehicles are quite expensive. I think it might come more from low cost, or let's say low tech solutions that might be more adapted to the reality of the population here. So of course it wouldn't be the case in Europe or in the US or other areas, but I guess for Africa the future has to take into account the large number of low-income consumers.
And Stephen and Chad, what is your opinion about this? This choice between hydrogen and I would say expensive to produce energy and agriculture energy.
Yes, I fully agree with the previous statement about the economics of the African market at this moment in time. Although hydrogen would be an ideal solution, I honestly do not think that the African market is quite fitted for it due to the cost affiliated for it. I think the alternative fuel sources, such as the generation of methanol from sunflowers, for example, within the agricultural market, is much more of a low-hanging fruit that the African market might explore in the near future, as opposed to the hydrogen alternative.
the issue we might have is that there's a limited amount of space where you can cultivate. And so you're going to have to choose between feeding the people or creating energy so that they can, you know, use their transportation. And this is going to be one of the issue, I guess. And this is why this solution is also potentially a dangerous solution, because it's preventing some food to be to
provided.
Be yeah.
It's on the long term it can be. We had this problem in Europe because it's we have limited in space, but South Africa in general, they have less this problem. But yeah, on the long term maybe. Stephen, do you have a point of view on this?
No, nothing to add on the fuel issue. I've got some comments on the plastic one, if we're going to go back there.
Yeah. Maybe let's finish first with this question. I see Tumeleng, maybe you want to react. Yeah, Tumeleng.
Yeah, hi everyone, good morning. I think my question was more in line of what Chad just highlighted. In the context of the African market, where specifically in South Africa, there's this drive to, I think we heard yesterday from the panels that South Africa wants to go carbon neutral by some year, whatever. So there's this push now by the government to invest in biofuels and production of biofuels, especially in the Free State. I know they're using huge plots of land now. They're doing trials over there. My question was more related to that. And I just gave the example of, sustainable aviation fuel as an example that globally the trend seems to be moving towards these green flights. But at a much more local scale, I'm wondering whether the panel thinks that the market is ready for those kind of innovations within the agricultural sector, and if it's is there room for innovation for small startups? Because one of the big issues that the market is largely dominated by big players, and like I mentioned, obviously the oil lobbyists on the other side pushing or trying to squash biofuels. So I'm just wondering, it's something that is it's an opportunity there that exists in Africa and South Africa. But I'm just wondering, I just wanted to get the opinions of the panel on like route to access for a small startup like ourselves. Thank you.
Someone want to react and to answer to Tumeleng? Be Chad, Arnaud, Valéry.
I don't think that my knowledge and the African sector is big enough to be able to answer properly. I'm sorry.
Maybe Chad or Arnaud. Yeah, Chad.
Just one comment. The Department of Trade and Industry, I believe, has quite obviously looked at focusing on development of a lot of SMMEs and entrepreneurs, particularly in the energy space. So maybe they could be an alternative route for you to approach.
So yeah, maybe. So let's jump to the plastic market question. And Stephen, you wanted to answer this question. It's about high employment. And,
yeah, so it's a comment and some of my experience. So my previous company, AECI, one of the leading chemical giants across Southern Africa, they, in the last 5 years, they acquired two businesses. One of them was plastic recycling business, and the other one was Much Asphalt, which is a company that produces tar for tar roads, for infrastructure across Africa. Now, it was quite interesting. Most of the employees were quite astounded with this acquisition. Why would a chemical business be interested in plastic recycling and tar? It wasn't, we didn't feel it was a match, but it shows where the industries are going and where the thinking is, where innovation comes in. And what they are busy doing is looking at non-recyclable plastic that can be put into roads. So it acts as a filler. So firstly, we're using the, we're getting rid of non-recyclable plastics, which is a massive problem. Anybody who goes to the ocean, to the beaches, will see those plastic, I think they're called noodles or something, that's almost as much as the sand on the beach. You find them on the water, you'll find them in the water, you'll find them in whales' guts, you'll find them in turtles' gut. So these non-recyclable plastics are a problem for us. And they've now started finding solutions where they can put them into the tar as a filler, and it actually makes quite good roads. It actually has some pliability. It allows the tar to, it's more resistant to potholes. It lasts longer. So this is an innovation that I think is going to, to take off.
Want to react on this? Yeah, we can use this resistant plastic and using chemistry and using finding new usings. We can use them.
In India, they've built about 800 kilometers of roads using plastics, about 8% plastic and the rest is bitumen. And they seem to have good wear properties, and uses a lot of unrecyclable plastic, all the mixed stuff.
Clothes.
Yeah, and there's other stuff that you can do with the plastic. For example, on the board of a company called Apnea Swimwear, they make swimsuits for men out of plastic that is taken out from the fishermen in the Mediterranean. So basically, the idea is that before that, fishermen, whenever they had plastic in the nets, they used to throw it away. Now someone will buy it from them. So they're going to keep it on the boat. And then after that, this plastic can be transformed into, in our case, swimsuits.
Interesting. Want to react on this? I see Matoke also. You raise your hand.
Yes, I actually had a question relating to plastic. I was still discussing the waste management and sustainability. So as part of our project, we want to introduce the low-cost housing. One of those things that we're considering is to produce this house in the most sustainable way, which might result in us using a different material, such as maybe other considerations that we've made, is to have a plastic bricks. But now the main issue is that you'd find that the customers, the end user, might not be comfortable changing to their own traditional method of building using the concrete or a cement bricks towards going towards plastic. They might think that the quality of housing is not as what they had hoped for, or they will tend to be too skeptical from that change. So I don't know if any of our experts might have an input on that, on how do we ensure the quality and to influence the users to be more welcoming to the new product. Thank you.
Interesting question. Again, how we can change the habits from the consumer, the users, to make the world evolve. So some answer to Matoke on this point. What do you think? Maybe Arnaud, you or Valéry, you from the customer point of view, or we can...
Yeah, from our experience, so it's clearly not. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have anything to see with housing, but what we've seen is to change the customer behavior. We need to adapt to what they do today and try to reduce the change for them as much as possible. So if it comes to, and I'll take the example of reducing plastic, if we try to push some reusable plastic, we need to distribute it in the same place where they usually go and shop. We need to make sure to adapt it to the cycle, the life cycle of the product. So make sure that they can, for example, return it once a month because that's when they've got some cash to buy it. So we need to adapt to what they know and make sure that the change is worth it. And very often, what's worth it, at least for low-income consumer, is the affordability of the product. But one thing that we've seen, and that really, I think, emphasize on what has been said, is that the quality is even more often criteria of decision that it could be in more developed or more wealthy countries, because they can't afford to take a risk that would be too high for them to replace. And I guess housing is clearly in that place. You can't afford to have a house that doesn't that requires a lot of maintenance and that has a lot of cost involved later, because you would not be able to maintain it and to afford it. So I guess that's a big question when it comes to very big investment like that. How do you make sure that people feel that the quality is as high as it would be with another product, even if you use recycled materials? And what we've seen in our case is that social proof is what convinced people to just change their habits. If someone similar to them have done that choice and that it paid off, then they're more willing to do it as well.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I would add that the narrative is also very important. The storytelling that you build around your product. If you tell people a very nice story, they will be far more interested than you just push a number, a fact, and you expect them to buy it. We like stories. We're adult, but we still like stories. So we need to make the effort of creating a story around the product.
Some reactions?
I think on that point of Valéry, the storytelling is so incredibly important. And I posted a link of an organization called oceancleanup.com, and they've just told an incredible story about their collection of garbage from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and how they've converted that plastic into this incredible sunglasses that look so beautiful. And on their website, they tell this beautiful story of the technology and how it was developed, and how it's cleaning up that ocean and that garbage patch. And then it literally, by the time you get to the bottom of the website, you want to buy these sunglasses, because those sunglasses fund another trip to the garbage patch to collect more garbage. And it just closes the loop. And it's just this beautiful, beautiful story of plastic being reused in such a beautiful and attractive way. If you are buying sunglasses, I highly advise that you go to our website and that is the next pair of sunglasses you buy.
If you can start feeling good while you buy things, but we're gonna win the battle by doing this. This is why it's so key.
So do we have some, maybe Jason, you want to ask a question about waste, water management, sustainability industry? Jason or George? I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's a big problem. And, the garbage pack, the plastic garbage, I think it started with a student. It was some Dutch student, I think, who started the initiative. I don't remember. But yes, it's a big problem. It's all over the place. Fish have them in them. Fishermen's nets get entangled, et cetera, but this is a major issue that more than just initiatives will have to be made, or it's there. They found plastic at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, so it's all over.
Mia, you raise your hand.
Thanks. This is such an interesting conversation. Thank you so much. It sparked so many ideas for me, and thanks for sharing those links as well. And I just wanted to give a quick reminder to the entrepreneurs that this is exactly what we're busy with here today, is to jot down as many ideas as come to mind when you're listening to the speakers and this conversation, because this is where we're getting our 100 to 150 ideas today to take into our ideation workshop this afternoon. So jot down what you're hearing. If it sparks something, jot it down. If a link makes you think of something, jot that down. This is just my favorite part of innovation, ideation. So I'm always inspired by it. And just a reminder for people to listen with a keen ear, because there's so many ideas that can come from this one conversation, never mind all the conversations we've had from yesterday morning, yesterday afternoon session, and today's session. So thanks so much for that.
Mia. And Komegeleng, you raise your hand. I don't know if it's still, you still want to interact.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to find out that, okay, so if you're producing something from waste plastic, you don't have like a sort of a customer base yet. People don't know that they want that thing made from waste plastic. So if you, like the example of sunglasses, people don't know yet that they want sunglasses made from plastic, from waste plastic. So how do you analyze your customers in terms of finding out if that would be a great idea to produce? Because sometimes you can produce something made from plastic and it doesn't work for whatever you've produced. So how do you find out if your customers would actually like what you're producing?
I think that the first thing is to make sure that the quality of the product that you will offer is at least the same that the quality of the product that they can find. And if it's the case, and if you go in a shop and you want to buy some sunglasses and suddenly you see that one of them is built with recycled plastic, if depending on your age and your sensibility to the problem, but if you're a younger person, under 50, I'll say, there's a real probability that you will want to buy this more than the other one. So then, of course, there's the notion of price. You need to make sure that it's not more expensive than the other one. But it's again, it's about the story. One product is just a sunglasses. The other one is something amazing, trying to help preventing a major problem arriving. So you're being part of something if you buy those sunglasses.
And also fishnet can be considered as more resistant than the usual swimsuit. I don't know. You can see that, oh, it's higher in, maybe it's more, I don't know.
It's not the fishnet, it's the plastic that is
plastic
gotten from the fish.
Sorry.
So it's all the plastic.
But I know also there are some clothes made from fishnet. From the ocean.
I mean, fishnet is one of the issues as well, because they can dump it in the sea. So if suddenly instead of dumping them in the sea, they bring it back so that someone will sell them, then you can recycle it into something different. Of course.
There's some startup on that. And Komegeleng, okay, thanks for the some other question on this industry, waste management. Maybe we'll jump on other industry, or maybe on another 6 paths. Regarding decision chain, I think it's interesting because here you talk about the final choice, the choice from the customer when you enter the shop, but there are certainly other influencers, maybe media, a newspaper, I don't know, maybe also the influencer on Instagram or YouTube. And they can, as we said, have an influence on the teenagers, on the maybe in the education with the teachers. What would be here this decision chain, and who could be concerned, interested to be part of this regarding waste management? Maybe the parents and the teachers, the influencers, they have different concerns, they have different benefits. Or we could imply them. There are some, there's a point of view from this on this decision chain. What is a decision chain? Maybe you to buy some waste, some recycled from the waste product in general.
Globally speaking, the chain is, the decision chain is now far more complex than it used to be when you had 2 or 3 channels on your television and a couple of radio. And so now it's almost impossible to understand or to say there's one way of convincing people. You need to, I mean, it's a segmentation of your market. You need to understand how to reach the people that you want to reach. And then it might be with social media and influencers. You're very right, for younger generation. It might still be with television for older generations. And I mean, we're all different. We're all different. We all have different cultures. We all have different age. And one of the danger would be to think that you can speak to everyone in the same way. The reality is that you have to adapt the story you're telling about your product accordingly to the person you're speaking to. And I think that by doing this, you have a bigger chance of reaching the people.
Okay. Was influencers for you, Stephen and Chad and Arnaud, on this waste management area? Just in general, were the influencers, deciders from the household, mostly in the household, but it can be also companies, it can be professionals. I'm sure, I know you are facing this recycling problematics for the local markets, local shops, and how do they decide to recycle or not recycle? Who could make the difference?
They don't recycle. That's the short answer. And there's not much recycling yet. The only recycling we see is from informal recyclers, so people that collect
pickers,
specific type of garbage, pickers, exactly. And so this is actually a good form of recycling, because they collect, sort, and then bring it to the place where it can be recycled. But today in low-income communities, what we see is for the moment, there's not much done to recycle, and the person. So if we want families to buy more plastic-free alternative, then it's of course the person in charge of shopping that will be in charge of that choice, and that's usually a woman in the family, and so that's what we've seen in our project with Unilever, for example. And the way to convince them is really what we discussed earlier. So the quality of the products need to be the same or higher, and the affordability needs to be even better, and the behavior shouldn't change drastically, so they can keep the behavior or just change it slightly, and the benefit should be higher than this change. So that's what we've seen to change behavior regarding plastic and recyclables.
And Chad and Stephen, your opinion maybe on the B2B side, or you can make companies who are the influencers or prescribers on the companies or the municipalities to change their mind, or to let them do recycling?
My comment will be what I've seen in the industry, and I'm obviously 55 years old, so I've been in this chemical, water and waste industry for coming on 33 years now. Some of the changes that I've seen in terms of decision making in terms of businesses that are doing well are the businesses that show that they care about the people, the communities, about the future, about the environment, about the ecology, our animals, the ocean. And with the digital age, this is obviously, you know, a lot easier for companies to show that they truly care. Some of the companies, and Chad, I'll talk about your old company, Ecolab, Nalco. What they do very well is on their website, they do water management where they try to reduce the amount of water that industry is using. So if they achieve water savings at, let's say, a big industrial company like a Sasol or a food company like Tiger Brands, what they do is they have this running, sort of a running number on their website showing how many millions of liters of water they have saved. And then they calculate then how many people that water savings could provide water for, based on an average, I think it's 200 liters per person per day. So they have this thing running live on their website showing that they've saved 500 million liters of water so far this year or this month, and that provides water for 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 people. And it gets them huge mileage. It's, you know, those people that will visit that site and they obviously present this on social media, they see that this is a company that truly cares.
Interesting.
That's a great example of storytelling. It's not just a statistic, you connected it with a human story of saving someone or providing water for someone that otherwise would not have. And that's a beautiful story. So that's an incredibly important element.
Okay, before we change the industry, George and Jason, you want to ask some last question on the waste management industry to our panel?
It's been clear to me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
George?
No, it was a good, clear exposition of the various aspects, and should give the entrepreneurs ideas, because all these issues exist in South Africa. It's how would you do it in a way that makes sense economically and from a market point of view. But these are the conversations you can do in your exploration with your non-customers. Since you're talking to people, you can talk to them about, you know, what do they think about waste? Would they use sunglasses made out of recycled plastic? And they'll give you an answer. They'll probably say yes or no, or maybe. But all that is information that you can probably use.
Maybe before we switch the industry, we can have a few words from you, some reaction if you have some about the alternatives, because you have mentioned the waste pickers. They are one of the alternatives of this waste management industry. Do you see other alternatives, maybe in the chemistry, as we said, we can use as raw materials this and give them a price value to buy them to the fishermen, to anyone, and use them as raw materials in other industries? Do you see other alternatives in the waste management?
The most efficient one is not to produce plastic anymore. then we won't have the issue, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to work on this.
Like consulting, you can do like Pandobac. We had yesterday the co-founder of Pandobac. It's exactly what they are doing. They bring consulting to restaurant to eliminate the all the disposable waste in the delivery, and they change the process, adapt, and support them where they need. Do you see other alternatives? Maybe Chad and Stephen, Arnaud, maybe also Arnaud in the local shops. And maybe Chad in the chemistry, you see. and Stephen also in the chemistry. Yeah. We said also we can use this as a material and also as energy. It can be also.
So let me comment on,
sure.
on recovery of material from waste. Now, I've had a lot of experience in this. Going back to about 2004, I had a client, Tiger Brand, who manufactured tomato paste, tomato sauce, everything with tomatoes, chakalaka, and they canned it up in a place called Devil's Kloof. It's right out far in Limpopo in the agricultural area, where they're obviously growing a lot of tomatoes. And they had a problem with their waste, which was very acidic. So because of the amount of water in the tomato, they have a positive water balance, which means they have more water in their waste than they're taking in. So they had to develop a wastewater plant that could handle this very acidic waste. Tomato juice is got a pH of around 2-3, so it's very acidic. And what they did before they developed the plant was to just dump this acidic water in a piece of land that they own, where there was actual forest. It was up in the mountains, and they just dumped this waste, and it destroyed the agriculture, destroyed the soil. So it was a company actually from, I think it was from the Netherlands, that came through with a plant with a reverse osmosis membrane that could take out the tomato waste, the tomato solid, the red stuff, and they recovered so much water that they didn't need to use very much water from the municipality, which obviously freed up water for the community. And they then purified from this tomato waste, they purified lycopene, which is an antioxidant found in tomatoes, and it is one of the most powerful anti-cancer for prostate cancer. It is also used to protect against cancer from skin cancer from the sun, which in South Africa is a major problem. The offshoot of this was they sold that lycopene to Big Pharma for, it was hundreds of thousands of rands per kilogram, which paid for the plant and gave more profit to Tiger Brands than their tomatoes. So this is the kind of thinking that we need. There's many other examples. McCain's, who produce French fries, they blanch the potatoes and they have a huge amount of starch in their waste. And starch is extremely, well, it's biodegradable, but it's got a terrible smell when it goes off, and it's very difficult to remove. But starch, starch is a food. There's many other examples where Sasol, for instance, has lots of brine. They have desalination plants, and this goes for any desalination plant. The brine that's produced is obviously full of salt, and this salt could be used for electrolytic generation of chlorine, which right now we have a major problem in one of the only, the only chemical company supplying chlorine has had problems with their plant and problem with logistics and getting raw materials to the plant, that we have no chlorine. And a lot of municipalities don't have chlorine to disinfect the water. So that is a crisis right now today. So a way of solving this is to try and use the brine or salt to generate chlorine to disinfect our water. And these can be on a very small scale. So if you can get a supply chain of salt into these rural communities, they can generate their own chlorine and disinfect their water.
Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, because I think your examples shows the entrepreneurs that are here that even if you do have already a business model, there's an opportunity to create new business models, and this is priceless.
Nice.
There's a few other examples I'd just maybe add that's coming to my head quickly. But one of the industries, the paper industry. The paper industry produces a waste called sodium lignosulfonate. This is obviously comes out of the wood that they use to produce paper or tissue, and it's not something that's functional in the paper industry. It's in their waste. It creates lots of foam, so it's quite a problem for them. There are uses for sodium lignosulfonate. One of them is as a biodetergent, biodispersant. It can be used to disperse organic deposits or biofilms in heat exchangers in big industry. It can also be used as dust control. So one of the issues we have around South Africa is from mining activity, coal mining, or any other open cast mining. We have large amounts of dust, which cause health problems for our people. I did a business case for a mine in the Northern Cape, Sishen mine. They have 500 vehicles, these massive HMVs that move the ore and the material from the pits to the processing plant. And these vehicles, the maintenance on the vehicles due to the dust, it obviously causes friction. It causes, it's like sandpaper that destroys the wheels, the internals, the electronics, and the cost of the dust costs them something like 50 million per annum on maintenance on the vehicles. So it's not just health problem, it's not just their reputation, the community's complaints about dust, but it's also the damage to their vehicles. And we have provided a solution to them for dust control. And in this case, it's dust control chemistry that it actually comes from a biological production of a chemical. So bacteria produce a chemical that binds the dust. And they found this bacteria grows quite widespread through our soil, and it actually helps soil to stay bound and to stay in a compact form. And this is now being used by mining groups, by communities who want to put dust control on their roads, old mine dumps, coal mines, even agricultural businesses want to use this type of chemistry to help keep their soil on the land so that their fertilizers and things and their seeds don't get blown around during windy periods, which in South Africa is a problem. October, November, we have quite strong wind. So, this is the way that we're moving. We're looking at bioremediation. We're looking at biological production of chemicals that can help us, and it's sustainable, it's safe, and it's non-chemical. So the chemical industry is moving towards, moving away from chemicals, moving more towards sustainable solutions, things that grow naturally, things that are in our waste. So that is a trend, an alternative industry, we like, that is really happening right now, and you should be focusing on.
Interesting. Nice. It's a lot of interesting alternatives you have given to the waste management industry. Very nice. I propose, are there some reactions to all these very interesting examples from Stephen? Maybe we can jump to another industry and ask ourselves about, maybe in the chat there is, okay, a lot of thank you, Stephen, in the chat, thanks. So maybe let's jump to maybe distribution. And Arnaud, you can tell us about what do you see in this distribution, local shops coming as a time trends, big trends?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'm sorry, I'll have to leave the meeting in just a few minutes, but the trends that we see, or at least that we would like to push and that we might see in other countries as well, is digitalization. So there's a lot more tech used in even small and informal businesses. It started with purchasing and selling airtime and electricity, prepaid electricity and prepaid airtime or data through virtual machines at the counter, and we're seeing a move to do that for physical products. So that's what we do in South Africa, but we see it in all the other countries in Africa, in Asia, as well as Latin America. And another trend that we've seen more in Latin America, and we don't see it really going everywhere, and I guess it's because there's still some business issues, but it's a bit linked to what we said before. It's packaging-free solutions. So instead of buying 500 milliliter of detergent liquid, you'll just come with your own packaging and you'll buy exactly what you need. This addresses two issues. The first one is the affordability of products. Sometimes you don't have enough cash to buy a specific amount of product. So being able to choose exactly what you want, because there's not a packaging, you can take 10 or 15 milliliters instead of 50 or 100. So that's a first problem addressed. And the second one is the packaging. You come with your own packaging, and so you can reuse it. So that's a trend that we've seen, but that is not growing too fast for the moment, at least in the low-income communities. So we hope that will be a trend that we will see getting faster, especially in our market, and that's what we'll try to work on.
Some reactions on these trends in the local distribution, as shared. And regarding the distribution, do you see some alternatives? Yeah, all this you mentioned the digitalization. Of course, yeah, internet, e-commerce. It's very more and more developed. And do you see other kind of alternatives? You know, here in Europe, we have a lot of Uber Eats and so on. They know directly deliver to you. Even fresh products, even grocery.
In Europe, we start to have a real issue because people want their food, their groceries and everything in a very reduced amount of time. So there's a company like Gorillas, for example, who's now offering you to bring you whatever you want in less than 30 minutes. So people are more and more demanding. But this is not, it's not good. It's not a good way to do it. So I think distribution is, there's a new trend that is also something that we have to fight against.
But you cannot fight against customers. They always are right.
No, you shouldn't fight against customers. You should offer them something.
Yeah, something
different,
better, the better value.
Different,
yeah.
of course.
Yeah, of course. Maybe Arnaud, before you leave, some reaction on that. Do you see the distribution?
Yes,
trend?
so we see, of course, the same development as in Europe regarding Uber Eats and this type of trend, but it's for a different reason. It's usually not that big yet in townships. So Uber Eats, Bolt, and all of that are all in South Africa. But when it comes to township, for security reasons, sometimes some companies don't want to deliver there, and also for affordability. Usually when you buy your groceries or food on Uber Eats, it might cost more than if you were going yourself to buy it. And customers tend to be very sensitive to price. But we are bringing these type of solutions, and we do deliveries in townships, and people are looking for that and are waiting for these services to be available for them. So that's clearly a trend. But I would say it's almost already there for a lot of services, and it's more for the low-income consumers that it still needs to be developed.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Arnaud. So if you have to leave now, we really thank you for your time and this very relevant sharing time and this insight. I think it fueled a lot the entrepreneurs. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Arnaud. Have a nice day. Let's continue maybe on the other industry. We had in the chat some requests regarding education, regarding the housing. Also, we would like to talk about housing. For instance, let's start with education. Do you see, Stephen, Valéry, Chad, some big trends coming in Africa, on the continent here, with EdTech, with education technologies, we talked a little about that yesterday. Valéry, maybe as an investor, do you see interesting startups coming on this?
Well, I think the most interesting trend is that we have a chance with the new generation to teach them how fragile the world is and what we should do in order not to damage our environment and our ecosystem. And internet is an amazing tool for this, because you have access wherever you are. And look at us. We all some of us are in different countries, and we're all together. And so you have access to knowledge. And the real issue is, which knowledge will you get access to? And so we need to educate people in order to understand that the source is key. Where do you get your knowledge from? And if we can manage to do this, I think that this will have an amazing impact in the next couple of years. But social media are not the best way to get informed, for example.
Course, yeah. To select the right source of information.
Exactly. If you look at the amount of people that think that the earth is flat, that in America, I think there's 9 million. My 8-year-old son read this in the newspaper, that 9 million American people think that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. Okay, and this I mean, it's ridiculous. This comes from social media mostly. They haven't been in a great university on the free mocks of good university to have seen this. And so the source, I think, is key, and we need to educate people to pick the good source whenever they see something, to have
their own judgment.
Exactly.
Maybe George, Stephen, and Chad, you have some reactions on this, and Jason also. As you are teachers, you are professors, George and Jason, you know about education. Yes.
Well, the social media is an issue because people believe what they're what's the word? They believe what they look for confirmation of their biases in what they find, and you can always find something that confirms even the craziest ideas. So it's difficult. And a lot of people don't want to challenge. I mean, look at the whole anti-vax thing. Even in Europe, there are a large percentage of people who feel that, vaccines don't help. It's a conspiracy. It's all kinds of other good stuff. And even though the information, the people who are dying now with Omicron are the ones who are not vaccinated. So it seems to be fairly clear, but still. So, if something like your life, you can believe stuff, then brown cows is an easy one.
It's a psychological, I think it's called cognitive bias.
Yeah.
It's when you look exactly for what you think is true, and you will be confirmed in this fake information. That's a point, because you can think anything, you can find anything on the internet, and
it's called falling in the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
you get more and more info, and the issue is that we're in a world where now scientific facts tends to be treated to many people like
the same level,
like an opinion, as an opinion. Yes, and this, I mean, for education is really bad, because everything can be challenged. Even 1 + 1 can be challenged now. So
yeah, sure. We will thank you, Chad. Of course, Chad has to leave. Thanks a lot, Chad, for your time and this very fruitful inspiration you gave us. Thanks a lot, Chad. See you soon. And so from the prototyping step, you will support the entrepreneurs. Thanks a lot. And maybe, Stephen and Jason, maybe you have an opinion on this, where the education with the internet is going in the future, these trends.
My comment will be something that I'm planning to do is I've recently employed a few young chemical engineers that the education standard in South Africa is not great, right from basic up through to tertiary. The quality of engineers and chemical engineers that are coming out are nowhere near, from 10, 20 years ago. And where they're lacking a lot is more on the practical side, but also in the South African context, they know very little about water. They seem to be focused on other disciplines, but the water and waste side is severely lacking. So my proposal is to go to the universities and technicons and offer that, I come and give career guidance, come and give some lecture for maybe 2 hours once a month on the water and energy space, because we need scientists and we need people to get into the industry and to go and help our municipalities that are busy failing at the moment. So that's an area that I'm going to focus on. I think it can be even taken down to maybe high school, where we have these open days where we invite maybe the grade 9, 10, 11, 12 to come through and spend a day with us in the chemical industry, in the drinking water, municipality, waste. We just spend a day with them showing what we do, how we do it, and try and inspire some of those kids to maybe take up the science discipline, to go and study further, and to show them that science is fun, science is cool. I think that, yeah, Valéry?
Sorry, if you could do this with politicians, it would be also great. Because I mean, it's the lack of knowledge.
Politicians will go back to school
on this subject. I don't know if you've seen a couple of days ago, a Swiss guy made a hunger strike in order to force politicians, whenever they come to parliament, to start to have a minimum amount of hours working on the subject, so that they know what they're talking about. And this is one of the people that are taking the decision for the next dozens of years. Most often they're not aware of the real situation, so they should come with Stephen as well. Please invite them.
They need first lessons with Stephen, and then they are ready to talk. Some reactions, George, Jason, Jean-Luc, yeah?
Definitely. Well, my brother works for a company called Valencia Online High School, and it's run by Rob Paddock, who ran GetSmart, a company that was sold for $1 billion to an American university, and they've made private high schooling available to at the price of 2,000 Rand a month to private online high schooling. That's a fraction of the price of what private high schooling would normally cost, with exceptional tutoring and mentoring. And I think that's a great example of a high quality of schooling made very accessible. And I really think with the advent of new internet technologies like the metaverse platforms and things like that, that education can become more exciting and also that the quality of education can increase if you can scale things. If you only need one high quality teacher and teaching the best mathematics teacher in the world, teaching thousands of students, and then each student having mentors and tutors, that takes education to another level. And I just thought it was an interesting case study of what UCT's online high school has done. Yeah.
Jason, you want to react on this education?
I think it's been roundly discussed. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe we can, if some of the coaches or entrepreneurs want to react on this education. I see Bongi Kozi, are you here? Yeah, Bongi Kozi, and also Luyanda, yeah, Luyanda, you're working on the education field. Do you have some questions maybe for the panel about education? And Vinny also, Vinny, you can also ask question.
Yeah, thanks. I don't really have a question, but just to kind of say, one of the our focus area is more on education around financial literacy, and both kind of urban and rural, but more specifically in kind of rural areas. Just from some of the research we've done and just from some of the questions we've done specifically for this Blue Oceans, what we're finding is that the kind of this is not being taught at school, and it's currently only being done by banks, by financial institutions, because they're forced to do it. There's actually a law under the Reserve Bank Act. So it's one kind of area that kind of needs a lot of focus, and the financial institutions, like I said, they need to be doing it because it is kind of mandated by the Reserve Bank. Yeah, so I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to give.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, what you got from the exploration to share with us. Yeah, maybe some reactions from the panel.
Yeah, I'll make a comment. Any entrepreneur, you can come up with the most groundbreaking idea that could save the world. If you cannot monetize it, if you cannot demonstrate a return on investment, if you cannot show why this concept or idea, is feasible from a business case, a life cycle cost, it will just sit in your head. So entrepreneurs, whether you're a scientist or you coming up with some idea, you need to understand the financial implication, how to sell it, how to monetize it, how to demonstrate that it makes feasible business sense. So with any education in the science field, there has to be a module on how to do cost-benefit analysis and the financial implications. It's absolutely essential.
Yeah, sure. It's all about business model and to be sure that there is really a market and it's big.
And for investors, the scalability is key. Definitely. If it stays too small, no one will want to invest.
Yeah, Mia.
Thanks for these points, but it's actually it seems so obvious once we are now in the entrepreneurial world that this is really important. But in formal education and or even as you start out in the entrepreneurial world, or maybe don't yet know that you're going to go the entrepreneurial route, but you are trying something out. You're trying to create something and sell something and see if you can sustain yourself. But definitely in the formal education sector, I wouldn't say that the awareness of these principles, the cost benefit analysis, is there a need in the market? Did you actually go find out and ask? There's this big hoo-ha made in South Africa because we've got such high unemployment, and especially youth unemployment, such a big fuss made about become an entrepreneur, start a business, do something for yourself. But what that actually takes and understanding those things that sound super basic to people in the entrepreneurial world or experts such as yourself, might only come quite a bit later. And then you're like, oh yeah, eventually it's that basic question: is there a need? Is there a market? Do I know what I should be selling this at? And I say that even for myself, as coming from the creative industries and freelancing for many years in the creative industries, but not really taking into account what all of that meant business-wise, and finding it quite unnerving and intimidating to actually, if you organically try to figure this out. Yeah, it's not obvious, and it's not common sense to very many people, I must say.
You're very right, and I think this is why one of the major piece at the beginning of the ecosystem are the incubators and the accelerators, because we do not expect someone who has an idea and who wants to dedicate his life to this idea to know everything. There's a big learning curve. And this is why by getting it into an accelerator program like Ocean Hub Africa, what we're doing, then we're going to spend some time trying to transfer our knowledge into the people, so that they can get ready to raise money. They can get ready to understand the reality. It is a human adventure at the beginning, mostly. It's people trying to do something with their hearts and with their brain. And sometimes you're right, they're missing some stuff, but they can be surrounded by people who will be able to transfer that knowledge. And if they do, and they need to learn how to do this, because they will have to do it during all the process of the company, because depending on the level of maturity of the company, you will need to find different people to bring you something different.
Yeah.
And so if you can manage to do this at the very beginning, it's a good sign that you'll be able to do it after.
That's such a great insight. Thank you so much, Valéry, is to not be discouraged or feel intimidated that we don't know, but to say that I've got this idea, I mean well, but there's some pieces of the puzzle missing. Who can help? And to see the value of incubators as that. I'd never really thought of our role at Simulogong as that, but it really is. So thanks for framing it like that for me. Thanks.
And I really think, yeah, what you're saying there, this whole Blue Ocean Corners and Blue Ocean strategy and thinking has been incredibly pivotal to both me and my team. And I just wanted to express an incredible thanks to especially to Alban, but also to Jason for his enthusiasm for this new idea on heritage education, that with the problem of heritage education that we're pursuing. And it's just so incredibly comforting to have someone like Jason and Alban who you can lean on when you are passionate about an idea and you want to express it in a new way. And you've got now this incredible framework and with the 6 parts and utility maps and everything to express your idea and explore it. So it has been an incredible journey, and I really do look forward to the conversation with Jason about heritage education, and I hope there's an opportunity to discuss that idea.
Yeah, maybe thanks a lot, Jean-Luc. Thanks a lot, Mia. Maybe in the last 10 minutes we have here, because we'll be in a pause in 10 minutes, we can have Matoke. We can hear Matoke and his group about housing, what you got from your exploration, your interviews with non-customers, and have the reactions and to be fueled by the panel here, and maybe if you have some questions, Matoke, for the panel about the housing industry.
Thank you so much, Alban. I don't really have a question for the panel right now about housing. I don't know if I can also, you said I can also share the
you can maybe tell us in a few words your understanding, the key needs you found from the non-customers of your industry.
Okay.
So I think it can start a discussion with the panel.
Okay, no problem. So as I explained before earlier in the morning, that we are in a housing industry where we want to provide a low-cost housing for the people who can't actually afford for the bond house in South Africa because it's too expensive for them, or because maybe they don't have a permanent jobs where banks are willing to loan them a mortgage for their bonds. And also, so what we want to bring to the market is a low-cost housing that will be afforded by those people that are not being catered currently at the market. Some of them might either be staying at the informal settlement or are renting at some places. So a couple of them were interviewed when we were doing our own market assessment to understand their pain points and the key needs there. As we were busy with interviews, we started to realize some of them, some of their responses or the needs tends to be quite similar. Sorry, Alban, do we have to check on that utility map, or I can just do the summary?
Just a summary, I think. And
okay.
During the workshop, we'll visit your group and go more deeper. But just give your
overview,
overall understanding of the.
Okay, no problem. So the most of the key points that we identified there is that the key needs is affordability. Affordability was the very main thing to them, that they don't afford the normal house that's on the market. Also, the location where they need the house to be located, you'd find that they would prefer to be at the urban areas, but that side being the urban, obviously we know that the urban areas is quite expensive compared to any other places such as township. And then the reason also they were not preferring the township is because they don't feel so much safe at the townships. That's why they will need to go to the urban areas where it's safe for them. And another thing that we picked up is that these people don't prefer to share other things such as yards. They would prefer a stand-alone yards to be their house to be stand-alone there, not the flats where you'd find that the parking is shared. If there's a pool, it's shared among the people, like what we do at the complexes, which might also be an issue in South Africa because the access to land it's quite it's a big issue. We don't have so much land, especially at urban areas, to cater for all these people, especially because they don't have so much money to afford the type of housing that they want. I mean, the house that has a stand in urban. Sorry? Oh, so at urban areas, it's going to be difficult to obtain access to land to build the standalone housing. And then other thing that they mentioned is it's a pain point for them is the amount of durations, that long-term commitment that they have to sign up the lease agreement for over a year in urban areas. They feel that if they could have something that does not force them to enter into lease agreement of over a year, it's something that they can consider jumping into. Also, the mortgage term, it's quite too much for them for 20 years. They don't also feel comfortable entering such in such financial commitment with the bank for over 20 years due to financial reasons. So the other ideas that we picked up from there is that maybe we can also, I know we have not yet come with a solution, but to also consider having something like a month-to-month contract for those people who would need to be renting. I know we had other people who would say that because of this remote working that they've been doing, they don't need to have a fixed place where they're buying a house somewhere to stay there forever. They would prefer to keep on renting, but they don't want that long-term commitments. So yeah, we're still busy with other interviews. I'm sure other things that will come up as we go through.
It's already very interesting and very practical. Yeah, you have discovered maybe some things. So some reactions from Valéry, Stephen, maybe the coaches and George and Jason on this sharing from Matoke. But yeah, housing, but safety, don't like to share common areas, the financial long-term engagement regarding housing industry. Do you see also some trends? Do you have in mind some trends for this housing industry? Or alternatives?
So
yeah.
when I was working at Sasol for 8 years as a service provider, Sasol have a number of because it's a fairly closed loop. They try and have a zero liquid discharge concept there because of the hazardous nature of many of the chemicals that are produced there. They use lots of, as I mentioned earlier, desalination, reverse osmosis plants to produce boiler feed water to run their boilers, which is the heart of the factory. They also use a lot of evaporators and distillation columns. And the product that they produce, so they're taking very hard saline water and they're basically boiling it off and distilling it and recovering that water. But the sludge and the cake that they produce is very high in mostly calcium and sulfate, which is known as gypsum. And gypsum can be used for building. It's used for board, for room dividers, for ceilings. So it can be used for housing. They also have material, mostly calcium chloride. Calcium chloride is an accelerant for cement. So, it's worth having these conversations with companies like Sasol. There's many others where they will be using these technologies to produce water, but there is the waste material that can be used for building, for cement or for gypsum. So there's an avenue there for talking to these companies and getting hold of that material. I mean, there's also, we have a lot of invasive species of trees that I know that they use huge consumers of water. I think it's the eucalyptus tree or something that came from, is a foreign tree that doesn't have much purpose except for building, possibly building. They're making furniture out of it. There's a company called, I think it's Waterwise. They go and they cut down these trees, remove them, and they use it for making furniture. But I thought, why could they not build houses? In the US, a lot of houses are built with wood. We don't see that used very much in South Africa, although we've got huge forests and we have a lot of invasive species that could be used for building. And then we have we have we have a lot of grass for making thatch roofs. We have in a paper industry where there's lots of fiber that can be used. And then plastic. I mean, I've bought some plastic furniture, garden chairs and tables, and it's amazing, strong, robust, resistant, that could be certainly used to build low-cost housing.
Yeah, bricks. So we know that there exists some coating and glue to make bricks, very resistant bricks for housing. Yeah. Yeah, so some reactions on this, and Valéry, maybe it's here connected to waste recycling.
Well, if we can manage to build huge Legos in which we can live in, it could be a great solution. Yes, definitely. If we can recycle to create bricks, I would love that idea. and it would be amazing.
And Valéry, do you see some other trends or alternatives in this housing industry, maybe in Africa? Have you seen some startups or some?
Not recently in this sector. No. In the agriculture one, yes, in food. I mean, we recently Ocean Hub Africa. We accelerated a local company from South Africa called Inseco, and it's an insect protein company. And basically, in order to, I don't know if you know this, but in order to have 1 ton of fish in our plates, we need to fish 3 tons of little fish, and to feed them. And so we're basically using insects in order to feed the fish.
Yeah,
and it's a quickly growing company, and it's very exciting.
Yeah. Some reactions on the housing industry, just to close the session, before we close the session on this all this recycling we can do, like Stephen just shared, with all these materials we can use. Yeah, thanks for the link, Valéry. So we will. Yeah, Lyal. I see Lyal is just joined us. We'll have. Hi. Before we start, we'll come. Lyal, we will come back. We'll have a pause. Maybe now. We come back at 11:15. For all of you. So Lyal will share with us and we'll react to the summary we will share with him, and also to give you even more perspective, to fuel you even more into let's go out of the box. All it's about thinking out of the box. So let's. So we will thanks a lot, Valéry, Stephen, our 2 last guest speakers for today. Thanks a lot to you for all this very good insight, very interesting, very relevant. I hope it was useful. I think it was very useful.
Thank you. And may I wish the best to all the entrepreneurs. Yeah. They're the heroes of our future. They're going to be the people finding the solution. And I mean, there's more and more people who are willing to help them in order to improve their chance of succeeding. And this is key. They're not alone, and they shouldn't feel alone. It's very important. And we wish you the best.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Valéry. And Stephen, thanks a lot for your very good insight. It's very open to new approaches, and I think it was very useful.
My pleasure. And I would like to just extend the invite. You know, this is not the end of the story. If you every entrepreneur must have a number of mentors, and you know, I would invite anybody. You can share my email address, my contact details. If you want to use me as a mentor, and you want to, I've also got a number of mentors that I use, and you know, I would open all of my mentors up to you. So if you need any assistance, if you want some ideas, you want to take this conversation further, you want to bring me into projects of yours to help, or just a soundboard, please contact me.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. I jump on this just to share very practical information to the group. Yeah, you can see, you know, on the platform you have access to all the speakers, all the mentors, direct access here, you see, and you have Stephen here, so you can directly contact each of them directly on the platform. In the networking also, you have on the platform you have a networking tool where you can send direct message to each of you, and including of course the speakers, the mentors, and Chad, Stephen. Also, yesterday we had Hendrik from VEOLIA's team. All of them, you can contact them directly, and especially after the final jury on the 22nd of February to be supported in your prototyping. And of course, we'll invite Valéry and all the mentors from VEOLIA, Stephen, Chad, Hendrik, and also all the speakers you had today and yesterday. We'll invite them to the final jury on the 22nd of February in the morning. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And so now we'll have our pause. So I see in the chat a lot of thank you. So I think it was very useful, this session, very rich. So now we will go in, we'll have a pause. We'll jump to the pause. So, and we will come back, in 10 minutes. Yeah, 10 minutes, 11, 15. Thanks a lot again, Valéry, Stephen. See you soon. Have a nice day. So we'll start again, and we'll welcome. So now we'll have this synthesis, summary. We'll have an overview on all this inspiration we got, all this interesting insight we got from all our panels yesterday and today. And we are very happy and very proud to welcome Lyal, from the founder of the Contextual Intelligence and Senior Director of Johannesburg Business School. Hi, Lyal.
Yes, hi, Alvin.
Hi.
How are you guys doing?
Good, good. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so good. I suppose if you're in South Africa at this moment, good morning, everybody. I'm not sure where everybody's timelines or time zones might be, whether we are on the brink of the afternoon, but I just wanted to say good morning and good day to everybody. Just to clarify, I'm the founding director of the Johannesburg Business School. I'm no longer the dean director of the business school. But what is interesting about that institution is that the business school that we founded was grounded in MBA and executive education geared for new business development. And what I mean by that is it was not an MBA that was structured to help in corporate climate, etc. It was for those that were wanting to start new businesses. So very much, and also start new businesses that would solve some of the most challenging social issues that we are confronted with in South Africa and actually beyond South Africa into the rest of Africa. So an African kind of a business mindset was one of the foundations of the school, but it was also very much founded on that restless energy that drives entrepreneurship and drives people like yourselves that are on this program and that are doing this fantastic kind of undertaking these fantastic initiatives. Following following my departure from the business school, I'm still associated as an adjunct faculty among other business schools as well. I've started an organization called Contextual Intelligence, and I can speak to that a little bit more, and it will probably come out in my assessment and my feedback on some of the summaries that you're going to share with me now. But Contextual Intelligence is a very, very interesting approach, and it's obviously grounded in areas of leadership and strategy, but I think it is most relevant for new businesses and people starting new businesses where we have to be mindful of the past, obviously cognitive of what is happening in the present and the current kind of factors that are influencing that, and then obviously with an idea of the future and what is the desired future that we will co-create, and that really is around hindsight, insight, and then foresight. I mentioned those, and I know they're big words after a long kind of session this morning, but I do think that contextual intelligence is something that does influence how we engage and how we actually make decisions in what I would call maybe perhaps a complex environment like South Africa, where we are starting to do or innovate new businesses. So that's my introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great privilege for me to share this space with all of you today. Thank you very much.
All the pleasure is for us. Thanks a lot, Lyal. I know you're a very friend of Jason, so it's very nice to discover a new friend from Jason.
No, and also I must just add that Jason's also quite involved in a lot of the work and the initiatives. And I've been teaching with Jason around the world. We've shared experiences anywhere from Curitiba in south of Brazil to San Jose in the States. And obviously, Jason is quite kind of not just internationally known for his expertise, but he's well traveled. So the experiences speak for themselves when you do actually engage with Jason. And I'm delighted he has connected me with this ecosystem as well. Thank you very much to Jason.
Thanks a lot. Great to have you on board.
So what we propose here, as you know, Lyal, it's an overview of all the industries we are talking about, mentioning during these sessions, yesterday and today, and also a reminder of the 6 pass, Blue Ocean 6 pass, you certainly know. And because each of the sessions we had with the guest speakers were focusing and question asked on this 6 pass, on these industries. George, Jason, and me, we have taken notes, and I propose we share this note with you, and you can also complete and react on this, all what we got from the speakers yesterday and today, and also you can also open on the other views, other perspective you can bring. It will be very useful. So the first session we had, it was with VEOLIA, with the cities, with Johannesburg, city of Tshwane. It was focusing on energy sustainability, and we talk about strategic group. We talk about the time trends. Maybe I let George and Jason sharing your notes, or you want to react on mine, or do you want to proceed? George, Jason, what did you get from this first session, energy sustainability on the strategic group? On your side, what you took from that? Yeah, you want, okay. Maybe, if you want, I can fuel you and you react.
Yeah.
We had Olivier, he was talking about performance, a lot about performance in the energy. He said it's first, energy is not about production, it's firstly about performance optimization. And if you can reduce your, if you increase your performance and also reduce your needs, it's a good way to sustainability. He talked about decarbonized, also a connection between decarbonization process and the reduction of the consumption. We talk about little supply, little power supply stations also, instead of big plants.
I think it's definitely an issue in everyone's mind in South Africa.
Yeah,
energy, and it felt like the general consensus is that it's something too big, too unwieldy, and too many self-interest are still driving the solution. You're still lobbying for more oil and gas power generation as opposed to alternatives. It seems as if a challenge that is stuck, and the solutions will have to be less centralized and less finger pointing. And I was a little frustrated that it didn't go past that. And I think that's what we have to do, is find non-traditional sources of power generation and distribution. And so I think that conversation needs to be pushed a little further.
Yes, I concur. This is a conversation that goes on even in India. We've been talking about renewables. No one's doing renewables. We're still importing coal, mining coal, destroying habitat, but there's too many vested interests to change it. Though we have, there are issues with solar panels, but there are ways of doing it because we do have labor. And unfortunately, most renewable energy tends to be a financial fiddle because you can raise, you get a lot of subsidies and you can raise money on the CapEx. And after that, nobody maintains the facility and transmission and an issue. So, conversation yesterday about micro hydro is good as long as there are reasonably fast moving water bodies. And the same with, micro solar. There's a lot of issues, but I mean, the solutions exist in some form, but there's not enough political will to push it through until local communities start doing something, which is obviously an opportunity for entrepreneurs. It will probably not progress, but there are partial solutions that exist, and there are examples that exist all over the world. It's a question of how do you, and also then, how do you pay for it, and how do you earn enough money from it, et cetera, et cetera. So, anyway, that's my 2 bits.
Could I make one quick comment on it from our perspective now, if you don't mind, if we keep it, yeah.
Yes, keep it as a conversation.
Thank you very much,
yes.
And it's interesting. Yeah, so what I think is quite interesting. So obviously, Jason kind of teed up the problem and the issue, and you've actually made reference to this from the Indian perspective, and it's quite interesting. There are very strong parallels with South Africa in this perspective, because obviously it's all entrenched in history, and South Africa, perhaps like India to some degree, but South Africa, as we know historically, has had access to some of the cheapest fossil fuels if you go back in history. And so we have literally got an entrenched culture of the use of fossil fuels, notably coal. So even though there's this rhetoric around how we have to change the way we're doing it culturally, and actually just this week in some of our, and if any of you want to go read about this, I think it's fundamental that you do, because if you are going to be agents of change in the landscape, in the political and the strategic landscape of South Africa, we need to know what some of the problems are. And interestingly, even the old kind of monopolies in South Africa, the old capital, were invested, and they started the investments in these coal mines and these coal deposits. But sadly, the new kind of entrenched monopolies that are coming in just rehash those agreements, and in fact, they crowd out or they push out some of the investors in those, and then they just kind of remine them. That's the one side, is that it's entrenched now very much in our history, and we have got this entrenched kind of culture of fossil fuels and the use, specifically coal, because of how cost effective it was. The second one was one of our largest state-owned enterprises, which all those South Africans that are online now will know the story, and even those that are outside of South Africa. Our state-owned enterprise that basically provided us with the lowest energy costs in the world at one stage a couple of decades ago has now kind of literally collapsed. And that is also obviously still unable to update itself. And if they're unable to update themselves in terms of technology and innovation. And so with that comes a whole other problems. So a lot of it is contextual, as I sort of earlier today talking about contextual intelligence. A lot of it is contextual. but a lot of it, and a lot of contextual, the flip side of that, which is something that Jason does speak to, is also cultural. So I think those are very, very.
I think we have lost Lyal. Lyal, are you still here? Maybe a connection.
Yes,
issues?
yes. No,
yes.
no,
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
I just put my.
Okay, so Lyal will. No, yeah.
No,
Yeah,
sorry, I am here. Sorry, there was just a.
Okay.
Sorry, just a bit of a.
No problem.
Yeah,
no problem. So yeah, about energy also.
But yeah, the cultural point is a very, very strong one that we need to be mindful of.
Yeah, sure. We talk also about ESCOM, this famous big company, ESCOM, and we said, yeah, it's the leader, but it can be challenged, and it seems that municipalities from city of Trondheim and Johannesburg, they were here, and also VEOLIA, they said, okay, a startup could on some specific fields challenge this big ESCOM and bring new values. And also ESCOM regarding decarbonization, they have a risk of unemployment if they reduce too much, or there is a balance. It was said also. It was mentioned yesterday. I don't know. Yeah, maybe you have an opinion, Lyal, on this big actors here with a monopoly, like a monopoly.
Yeah. Look, it's a very complicated question in the South African context, because obviously, as we know, this has actually undermined our competitiveness as a country as well. But I do agree that independent providers, it is starting to open up. We've seen this in other monopolized state-owned areas, and it is starting to open up. I do also think that it's quite useful. Something that George actually he's actually just brought to mind now is, again, the importance of kind of comparative studies to see what they did around energy and around these massive providers in maybe, and it would be lessons of case studies of or instructive lessons of progress, but also those where there's been mistakes made. So obviously, India and Brazil always provide interesting case studies for us, albeit on a much larger scale. But I think in the case of South Africa, I just wanted to add one other thing is, we all know that there is opportunity in the area of renewables in South Africa. And while I might sound a little bit kind of a little bit pessimistic around our departure from fossil fuels, and let's not forget that we also are a non-oil producing country, and we are highly dependent on oil. So that also obviously increases the cost of production in South Africa, because we're vulnerable to this. But none of this infrastructure has been maintained appropriately or updated over the last 30 years or so. And this has obviously undermined our competitiveness. But then there are new innovations that are coming out, and especially in certain kind of locations around South Africa, which is very, very interesting to follow in the area of renewables, and be it in solar or in wind power or something like that. But I think this is really the space where there is going to be innovation, and where we could find business solutions to some of the most crucial challenges that we're experiencing. And while I did sound, as I started off sounding a bit pessimistic, there is a slow there's a gradual push in this direction. And the more and more you go to the nether parts outside of metropolitan areas, because you must remember the metropolitan areas in South Africa are very, very different to the ones that are the smaller towns and maybe the rural parts. And I carry a lot of optimism around new areas of development, new forms of connectivity, new areas of new options around energy in the outskirts or the places that are outside of metropolitan areas, and perhaps even in the rural areas, for us to actually kickstart this. And that therein lies maybe a challenge to the entrepreneurs, is those ideas and those initiatives that you have, start those in bite-sized chunks in smaller towns and in perhaps some of the rural areas, to address some of these massive inequalities that we see in those, by virtue of just geography. I think that's quite an interesting one, because that will work and they will gain traction as pilots in those less metropolitan areas, if you like.
Yeah, that's the objective. Cities are engaged a little to the program to experiment the project they like. That's why it will be this jury with the cities as stakeholders. Just I shared in the chat an example of independent energy distributor in South Africa, which is called PayGas. It's very interesting because you pay as you go, as you use. You just pay for the quantity, and you don't have a subscription. You are not engaged. You just pay when you are using gas in your at home. They are deploying and it's a blue ocean, I think.
And Alvin, they're actually starting this in the area of electric power as well, where actually a large portion of the country is actually under the pay-as-you-go, and there's new service providers that are entering into the space. So, like I said, I may have sounded quite pessimistic, but there is a gradual change, and the likes of Eskom reached crisis levels over the last couple of years. But those crisis levels have actually not just nudged us or prompted us, but they've forced us to rethink energy in this country, which is perhaps a good thing, you know. So there's a whole kind of reset that's taking place around the energy sector. I'm not yet convinced that the politics and the policy is in line with the commercial pace that is taking place in the area of energy. That's to George's point. He said it maybe a little bit more eloquently and diplomatically than what I would have, but basically I'm not sure whether our politics and policy is up to pace with these changes that is required by the commercial sector and by entrepreneurs, because they also obviously are the ones that might not only play in the space but are requiring it. So that's what is so important.
Yeah, but the energy, just to close on this industry, we talk about also communities. Monique from Johannesburg and also Olivier from VEOLIA, they said they mentioned a lot about how to have communities of consumers, of solar users, of solar sellers, to train them, to change, to let them know about or they can reduce their consumption, or they can when they can use energy, electricity for what. And I think, don't know if you have an opinion about this, communities of users and about energy.
Yeah, so I don't have a very strong opinion on that just yet. It basically echoes the sentiment that I said before, is that it's going to be communities that will drive for the change. And we're starting to see this groundswell of that taking place in certain, and it's also, you must remember, it has to take place in certain geographical locations across the country, which are very, very different. So from the Johannesburg metropolitan area, if you like, or Gauteng, the province, to other parts of the Western Cape, and then to Eastern Cape are, worlds apart in terms of their delivery of basic public goods and amenities like energy. So I think it is actually quite interesting, and those communities come together in different ways. So we've seen them, and that in itself would be an interesting area of research, and then obviously of maybe opportunity for people to look into.
And also to become producer, to earn money from this production, local production in their house from the solar they could get, and it can be one way. In France, we have developed a lot of solar energy. Doing that, people can sell directly their energy to the energy distributor with at a very good price. And you know, it's one option we shared yesterday.
Fantastic,
yeah, having independent, making this household independent producer of energy, and to decentralize. It was a lot about decentralization also. It seems to be something big. It's connected also to the more political discussion we had at the end of the day yesterday. But yeah, how we can engage, having the politics and municipalities more engaged and the decisions and taking really decisions for the people. Seems to be also in the decision chain something very key. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
No, I agree, and I think that the lessons from the likes of France are actually useful for us and instructive in how we might be able to look at it, especially in the metropolitan areas.
George and Jason, on the energy industry,
No, just following up on Lyal. It's actually two conversations. Metropolitan areas, there are already transmission capabilities. So solar, buyback, all these things are possible. But as soon as you go into the more rural areas, you're thinking of having independent operations, because creating transmission and smart grids and stuff gets very complicated. But that's too, metropolitan areas, I think this idea of a smart grid, it's not that complex to do. And does South Africa have rooftop solar?
It's actually a very interesting question, because so what would be useful for the audience is to look at some of the companies that have emerged. And again, the origins are mostly down in the Western Cape, where they've actually started adopting roof. You know, we've got this culture, George, of very similar to the US type of culture of building these massive malls and things like that. And yes. I've noticed that, and even despite the pedestrian rates of growth in South Africa, you know, we've only had rates of growth of literally barely breaching 1% GB growth over the last kind of 15 years each year, which is ludicrous for a country like ours, needing much more growth. But despite that, the consumerism is still pretty high. So we build these massive malls, and I've noticed that the new malls have all got either these big parking areas, or even on top of the malls, completed with a rooftop of solar panels. Yes. And so they cover huge surface areas. And then the other thing is that many of the public buildings are now having what you refer to as roof solar or rooftop solar. And so there's companies that have just emerged out of. I know of one or two of them in Stellenbosch and in Cape Town that have emerged out of that. And if anybody wants me to, I can connect them to those companies, because those are very, very interesting. And one of the companies actually drew up a contract when I was the dean of the Johannesburg Business School. They drew up an agreement with the University of Johannesburg, which is obviously, it's the second largest contact university. So they've got a huge number of buildings, and it's a massive university, not quite on the scale of your massive public universities in India, but still 60, 70,000 students. So you can imagine the buildings and the infrastructure that they have. And in my most recent visit, most of those parkings and many of the buildings had solar panels on top of them. So this is, again, something that's relatively new, only started about 3 or 4 years ago, but has taken on quite a pace in terms of its putting that infrastructure in place.
No, and other than the supply chain issues of COVID, cost of panels have come down dramatically. And it's now it is viable as a source. I mean, compared to, especially with, if load shedding is such a big issue, at least you can, mitigate that to some extent.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. The decentralization of energy production is a very hot topic, especially in corporate circles who want to depend upon a continuous energy source. In Canada, I was working with Hydro One of the, it was state, but now it's private energy producers, and they found the cost of creating decentralized power sources much cheaper than the maintenance of a centralized distribution system. And yes, and as you said, solar panels are incredibly cheap now and getting cheaper, and also the integration of them into things such as roads, runways, is an advancement that is another possibility, so that local, even rural municipalities can create an ongoing and profitable energy production, but decentralized.
Maybe we can ask to the coaches and to the entrepreneurs if they have some question on this energy industry before we close it. I see Brighton, Bami, Canayo, entrepreneurs who are on this field, working on this industry. If you have some questions or reactions, Bami, Brighton. Yeah.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. And Bami, maybe you have some, you want to react on, you have some question before we jump to another industry?
No questions, Alwyn.
Okay.
No questions.
Good. Okay, so I propose we maybe jump to waste water management. We had a lot of very good insight and thoughts from the speakers. Yes, we had Pandobac, you know, this the co-founder of Pandobac, this company, this startup, who were able to eliminate this disposable packaging for the delivery of restaurants in France. And we had VEOLIA engineers and VEOLIA managers. We had also Anne Le Breton from the European Commission. She gave us a lot of very interesting trends on these fields. So what we said, for instance, just to make a start on this topic, it's about a lot of people do not have access to water. It's no access to clean water. It's very key. There are also new solutions to detect leak detection, to have leak detection. There is also in South Africa, it was said that no industry address systems to use other water for flushing. It's not. People don't think it would be interesting also to treat the drinking water and to a special approach and to preserve it. There are certainly a lot of opportunities of new businesses on this. George, Jason, if you want to complete, of course, this first thought.
I think, yeah, it's quite well summarized. Next topic.
Yeah, we talk also about trends. It's a big push on no plastic globally, and the water. It's about desalination. It's also a trend, cleaning the water due to climate change, because the world has physical bonds, and it's the same for the land use. You cannot have dump used everywhere. There is a limits, physical limits. We talk about that. No, Lyal, if you feel inspired.
Yeah, no, one of the things that I just, when it comes to waste and water management, I mean, obviously this is a massive issue at the moment. And again, I'm reminded of kind of this parallel universe that George and I spoke to briefly in the metropolitans or the cities and some of the smaller or the rural parts. It's interesting to note, and this is where there's a desperate need, and where with a desperate need comes the incredible opportunity, is that many small towns, small and medium towns, do not have a waste and water management strategy and system in place in South Africa. And this is despite our so-called impressive infrastructure across the country for the level of development that we get. South Africa has still got impressive infrastructure despite the lack of investment in that infrastructure over the last decades. But having said that, the small towns that have emerged or that are now small and medium-sized towns require this. And I've noticed that many entrepreneurs are taking advantage of this and then engaging with municipal management, etc., in developing this. I've got a long list of examples of this. Just as one example, there's a relatively, it's actually a very strong, well-functioning town in the Western Cape called Swellendam, which that's had endless problems with its water and waste management. On a personal experience that I've had is whenever I want to do any type of practical work, construction or anything in that area, to remove the waste is double the amount of doing that type of work in construction-wise or operationally in Swellendam than what it is in Cape Town, just 2 hours down the road. And I asked the question, it's simply because they don't have the facilities for the water and the waste management. And so in short, by addressing these issues, you'll improve the costs of actually operating and doing business in those areas, and obviously improve the opportunities and improve the productivity and the competitiveness of those areas just for ordinary small businesses. So it's got a massive knock-on effect. And the importance of this right now in the South African context cannot be overstated. I cannot be understated. It's really, or overstated. Yeah, it's really something that we need to actually address. And I do think that once again, it's where we are seeing the institutional voids that are prevalent across the continent or across the country. I do think these can be plugged by innovative and effective entrepreneurs looking to do this type of work. It's pretty straightforward, actually.
Yeah, we talk a lot. Yeah.
Sorry. And the waste in the water is very linked because landfills leach toxic elements into groundwater, and then you have it's a sort of perpetual vicious cycle. And I have a case. One of the blue ocean projects I did in India was in the agro space, and they found that a lot of land, because of using urea, the land is destroyed. And this company came up with this idea of converting wet waste into compost, and has actually improved the quality of the fields, improved the returns, and got rid of a lot of wet waste. And then they found that in the smaller areas, they actually helped small waste entrepreneurs or compost making entrepreneurs to collect and compost and distribute in the areas. And they're in the range of a few million tons of it the last few years. And they actually branded the compost and sold it. But it was a sort of win-win solution.
Yeah, for instance, the waste you have also, we mentioned yesterday, Black Market, which is a French unicorn startup, very famous, and they have developed a very big business in this second-hand cell phones. You recycle your cell phone, and you are paid for that. And you, even if your cell phone is totally broken, you still have some money value. You can still get some money, some cash from it, and you just need to send it by post, and you have the money you receive back on your account. It's very, very simple but very efficient. It gives a price to your recycling action.
Oh, that's good. I've got a few dead iPhones that I'll take to Paris.
They have value. They have value. Yeah. Instead of sending them in the trash and nowhere. Also, we mentioned yesterday the waste pickers in South Africa. It seems to be very specific to South Africa.
No, we've got them in India too.
In India too, yeah.
You've got them in cities in America too.
In several cities, yeah. So, Lyal, what is your opinion about this waste pickers?
Yeah.
It seems that Maya yesterday also mentioned the wastepicker.org.za. It's African Reclaimer Association. It seems to be very well organized.
Oh. Okay, I'm not actually familiar with this. I must actually have a look at that. It sounds very, very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. And so
I shared yesterday as well. There's a whole guideline written for the integration and formalization of the waste picking industry If I can find that link again, I'll just drop it there, Lyal.
Okay, cool. Thank
I'll
you so
drop
much,
it
Mia.
in the chat.
Yeah, that will be interesting to look at. Thank you very much. You can also email me anything. We must share our email addresses, or mine at least, when we're done. I know that everybody else has already shared theirs, but I'm happy to share.
That would be very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, and also, but waste, this morning we should have Pinky Mokwena, founder of Metsiatang, and she has launched a startup using waste to clean the water, waste from the agriculture to clean the water. It's very interesting. And but she had an emergency this morning, so she could not join. She apologized. But I will put all the groups who are working on waste management or agriculture, like into Melang. Please send me a request, and I will put you in touch with her directly. She will be very keen to exchange. Yeah.
Calvin, so while this is just a topic that I sometimes kind of that grabs my interest because of the different towns and the development that I'm seeing around them. But where I could maybe help the group in some way is there's quite a few people. So I've been dealing with a lot of municipal managements in different very, very specific cities around South Africa, and there's ironically the one. The head of waste management of that, and Swellendam is a very, very, very big municipal area. It covers a geography of up to about 200 or 300 square kilometers. It's a very, very big municipal area. And the person that's responsible for that is I've got a direct contact to. So it might be useful for those that want to engage with that person. I can connect them to that person. But on the other side, there's quite a few people that I work with laterally. And so I do a lot of work in the area of biomimicry and the learning around that, the innovations. Jason knows about these strange interests that I have, because obviously it's just learning from nature and things. But those people that are working in biomimicry have got a very keen interest in not only in conservation, but in waste management and in water management, etc. And they've obviously coming from a particular area of innovation, perhaps, but also they've also got a little bit of an engineering kind of background in some ways. There's somebody that has actually worked on waste management strategies for certain provinces around South Africa, and I can connect people to those kind of thinking groups, because they would gain enormously. So if there is anybody on the call that is specifically interested in waste management, is specifically interested in learning more and engaging with these communities, I'll very happily connect you to them.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Lyal, for this proposal. I'm sure the entrepreneurs will react positively to this proposal. So maybe let's continue on the waste and water management. What we had also discussed, from Mia also, Low Afrique, you mentioned this startup, South African startup, developing a toilet cistern with hand wash basin integrated and other hygiene. There are a lot of this to make the water like portable, and you can move it, and it's clean water, or it can clean the water you have, or it can take water from the ground. I don't know. It's and also this morning we had Stephen mentioning this plant to get water in the industry, because it was said that South Africa is quite a dry country, so it's this water is very key. So so it's not yet in the people don't think about that. They don't realize that there are boards, you cannot dump the ground as much with no limit, and the water it's also limited, and especially drinking water. So maybe something we can do to make people change their mind and realize that there are limits to that it is.
I was looking at, I think maybe when we talk with Pinky, that will be much more clear, because I was looking at the portfolio and what they've developed, and the product itself is using like waste from water waste from agriculture and cleaning it up and sort of making potable water and solutions in South Africa that, you know, most of us I didn't even know about it until I looked them up. So I think it'll be interesting to sort of look into that space, and what Lyal was also describing, that maybe there are ways that even at the municipality level, there are ways that we.
She's already working with the city of Chennai, with Isabel. But you can Pinky. She's a winner of the first South African Brochure Awards. So sure. We will put each of you who want to be in touch with her. I will put you in touch, of course. So regarding trends in the waste and water management, it's we said no plastic anymore, desalination, the climate change, reuse a container. So some countries think it's easier to use disposable packaging still, but reuse. Arnaud from SHOPIT, he said a lot about that in the local shops. No compliments on our reaction to that. And also we have maybe Jean-Luc and other entrepreneurs working on the waste and water management want to react, ask question before we jump to another industry.
On the waste problem or challenges that we face there, I think my particular interest is in composting and home composting. I think it's an incredible solution for reducing the amount of biomass that goes to landfill if you can separate it at your home. I think that if every home had to do that, we would save enormous amounts of I think the statistic is that 90% of what goes to landfill shouldn't go there, but only 10% should actually go to landfill. And that there is an incredible opportunity, like in India, like it was explained earlier, to do home composting and home separation of waste and cleaning of waste at the home. And that is something that the consumer can control. And it makes such a difference. You don't have to empty your bin nearly as often. It doesn't go smelly, and it doesn't create a stench or anything. And you can use it for your garden. So I think it ticks a lot of boxes. That's that type of technology. And it's very much an intermediate technology. It's nothing sophisticated or advanced, but I think it has a big impact.
Lyal, you want to close maybe on this topic, water and waste management?
Look, it's not necessarily my sweet spot. I think the next two topics or two or three topics are probably a little bit more in my area. But the water and the waste management, I think there's a lot of interesting solutions. Just listening to what Jean-Luc was talking about on a recent visit, in Johannesburg, for example, we've got a completely different approach to waste management from the household. The composting is something that is it's been slow to adopt here in this part of the country, but it's much more prevalent in other parts of the country. But what is interesting for me as just a citizen, I kind of live between Johannesburg and the Western Cape, so I kind of share the different experiences, and there's such different cultural experiences of living and in these kind of crucial areas that you guys have highlighted, which is interesting for me. But just living here in Johannesburg, I handle my waste completely differently to how I handle it down in the Western Cape, because we have these urban, what they call the urban surfers, and they've made, do yourselves a favor, just get onto YouTube and maybe Google urban surfers in Johannesburg, and you'll see these guys that collect the waste, and those of you that live in Johannesburg will know this very, very well. My recommendation to everybody always is to engage with these guys, because they actually do know thankless task of managing our waste. And what I did was I actually traveled to the center of a part of Soweto where they sort the waste, first of all, neighborhood by neighborhood around a large metropolitan area of Johannesburg, and then they take it to certain areas before it goes into the landfills. What they're lacking at the moment is funding and things like that. So I'm quite surprised corporates haven't jumped onto this, and the likes of those that are literally are contributing to this
waste.
This waste and the single-use plastic and things like that. I'm surprised they haven't jumped onto it to like literally sponsor these guys in their processes. So one of the things that I'm quite keen to do is actually nudge the corporates and nudge the leadership to actually do these things, because it is a cool thing to do. I think if anybody's interested, I'll take you to those waste areas, and you can see exactly how they do it. And innovation doesn't necessarily always have to be this, as everybody knows, this high tech and kind of very forward, like an amazing thing. It's sometimes really, really basic, and they actually show this to us in the way they're actually managing it, but with like real minimal funding, because they just draw the funding from organizing that waste and then selling it off to the waste the waste areas. But it's useful to know that, just to understand the context a little bit better of how they do it, because I can tell you this is that they've struggled to actually separate the different forms of household waste in Johannesburg for this very reason, is that they actually have people, and it's a bit of a job creation problem in a part of the country where we've obviously got a very high unemployment. So it's I don't know, there's various stories that can come out of this, that we can look at this in a very, they're highly localized in the way we might actually manage this.
Okay,
it's a very good point. As mentioned with the team, I worked on a World Bank project in southern Thailand, where we found that formalizing the informal network was the most effective and cost effective as well approach to waste management. And by empowering the informal network and making it into a formal network, it is job creative and much more effective as well. Once you have the proper tools and the proper ability to focus on reuse and not just recycling. So it's an area that's ripe for access. I mean, South Africa has one of the highest metal recycling and reuse levels in the world, but one of the lowest in plastics. So until we can change the production of plastics, I think making the informal network into a formal one is very promising.
Yeah, and that also
informal pickers save South Africa's economy 16 billion a year by the work that they do. I think that was the latest statistic I heard. It's an incredible amount that they save South African metros.
Yeah, it's reuse. It's also reduction of the origin of the process, at the beginning of the process, in the production. It can really be just reduce the waste you produce as an industry when you create new product and you manufacture new things. And also it was very interesting this morning from Stephen. He shared a lot of very surprising and interesting examples. These industries, how they transform themselves to optimize and to reduce their waste. And also, he gave the example from McCain with the desalination plants, with the mining industries, with Tiger Brand, they found a solution to collect water from the ground, just to produce tomato product. It's also from the chemistry and from optimization in your process. You can also reduce at the origin the impact of your product on the environment, and also your waste as an industry. And then, of course, finding finding new uses, new ways to use this waste, and taking it back in another industry and connecting. He gave also a very interesting example from industry, from McCain, we can produce as waste of the industry from McCain. It generates chlorine with electrolyte, and also it gives the example of another company who produce waste transformed into an active medicine for drugs, anti-cancer. So
lycopene from tomatoes.
Yeah, from tomatoes. It's very surprising, and I'm sure there are a lot of things to be discovered on such and to reduce the global impact, because it's very important to see to have the overview on all the process, on all the it's called from the origin to what will be your product even after 10 years, 20 years it has been used. Cradle to cradle, it's one of this concept, cradle to cradle.
Just a question, does South Africa have a formalized CSR policy for large corporates? Do they have to spend some percentage? Is there some benefits? Is it something that's done?
Yes, yeah, they do. They do, and there should be incentives to actually engage in many of these projects with small business. But obviously, there's other requirements, which are obviously just in terms of creating equal opportunity given our past. Yeah. So those are,
because there's usually large amounts of money that you have to find a way of accessing it, but and the corporate gets benefits from showing that they're responsible members of society, etc., and because in India corporates have to spend 2% of their revenues on CSR activities, but some people use it actively, some people fiddle it, but still there are large sums of money available.
Yeah, South Africa's got something similar.
Yeah,
and sure there are also some positive communication on that for the companies. He gives this morning, Stephen from VEOLIA gives these examples. This company with counting the water they made economy on this water just for using this or this solution, and it make it very concrete. If you see on real time on your internet site the water you can save, and it's very concrete for the consumer, and it's very positive in terms of communication. It's a positive loop. You enter in a positive loop, you create something positive. So certainly there is some consulting, the same as Pandobag. Pandobag made consulting to a full industry, restaurant industry, to eliminate the waste, the delivery, the waste from the delivery. So I'm sure there are some new businesses to be created to support an industry, any companies in this industry to help them in good positive communication. It will be a good impact on their revenues, and also for the planet. There is something, I think, especially maybe in South Africa, where people are not very aware of all these limits of the planet and water and waste and so on.
Yeah, but there seems to be a lot of association, from Mia's post for waste collection, etc. There are authorities and organizations, so there must be a lot of information. And I opened one of the websites. There is funding available, etc., etc. So maybe it's something that needs to be explored further.
It's an existing ecosystem you can connect also to start something new. And I'm sure it's possible in any country to do a Pandobag on each industries. You transform this industry, you help this industry to transform itself, to reduce or eliminate the waste or treat the water correctly and so on. and it's positive for all the industry. For the companies, they can communicate, they have positive impact, they have a future, so they can show that they are in the future, considering the future of the humanity, of their clients, and it's positive for all of all the people involved. Mia, you raise your hand.
There is an entrepreneurial venture that was part of one of our programs. I think it was last year. Sorry, 2020 and 2021 is a blur in my head. But during our pre-startup phase, where Timologong hosts design thinking workshops for entrepreneurs to validate a new innovation that they'd like to bring to market. And one such company that was part of our program was Urban Earth, and they are exactly that, an environmental consulting firm based between Joburg and Durban that help municipalities and state departments to look at their energy consumption, their environmental impact, etc. So they work quite closely and intensively specifically with municipalities and state departments on environmental impact assessments, etc. I'll just drop their link in the chat as well.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mia. I think there is even you don't even need the. I think when you are an entrepreneur, you can go on your own, and if you find something, if you find a business, investors and clients will follow you, and even without the support of governments or municipalities, because if you find new revenues, new interest, new value for your customers. And for instance, I don't know, maybe like a communication company, a communication agency in South Africa, taking and trying to change or taking the best of each company to show what they do, for the environment, and try to transform them to reduce or eliminate the waste or the consumption of water or anything. It can be something. It can be something because people are more and more aware of this, and it draw you a future, a vision for your company. Okay, some last thoughts about waste and water management. So maybe we can jump to mobility. We were discussing mobility yesterday afternoon. So with one responsible, one leader in mobility for the European Commission. And we were saying about bicycles, about the connected bicycles, and so the second-hand bicycle market, which can be huge. We talk about safety for the bicycles in terms of for the bicyclist, and for also they were missing some lanes, they were missing some safety. And also we talk about video gaming to inspire, to make people educated or change their mind. We talk so about mobility, mobility in general. Lyal, what is your in South Africa? What do you see as trends?
So when you say mobility, is that just connectivity in terms of the movement of people, or are you talking about other? So is that what you're talking about, the movement of people?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's more local mobility.
Yeah,
it's more, bicycles.
So, and look, this is a kind of an age-old topic in South Africa because the nature of how public transport has evolved, or yeah, it's how it's evolved, but how it's failed to kind of service the population at large, and this has clearly undermined. It's undermined productivity in South Africa, I would argue, and really undermined the competitiveness of the country as a whole. So it's a very big issue. But in terms of the opportunities that are there, I do believe that increasing the opportunities, obviously through technology and we've now got a number of apps that service this. But if you go down to the rudimentary type of traveling through the market for secondhand bicycles, etc. The problem that you do have in South Africa is that mobility, what comes with mobility, hand in hand with mobility, is safety and security. And the South Africans that are all on the call right now will know that you have different levels of transport, whether it's from walking to riding, bicycles to using buses and public transport, to taxis, to held app-based kind of facilities. It comes with a huge amount of security concerns in the South African context, and that's always going to be at the forefront of any type of solution that is provided and innovation that is kind of dreamt up. So that's something that I would actually always put at the forefront of my ideas is how will this actually address and then maybe curb the concerns around safety and security.
Some reactions? We talked about batteries, electrical vehicles with Sun Mobility example from India. This battery swap for fleet management. George, you want to react?
Well, this was a company that won the Mobility Award from Michelin in the last Blue Ocean Awards in South Africa. And the founder is somebody who's been in electric vehicles for forever. And he got up one day and said, you know, why doesn't it work? And he said the problem was the cost and range anxiety. So they came up with a system of swappable batteries that, and they're focusing only on shared mobility. So in India, it's essentially three-wheelers and buses, but mostly three-wheelers because, you know, the cost of conversion is quite cheap. And he's made energy as a service. So you pay only for the electricity used. And there's a software back end that allows you to find where you can get a battery and it tracks your thing. And they seem to be doing quite well in India. And they just received a 50 million investment from Vitol, which is a major energy trading company. So they should do reasonably well because three-wheelers is what most people travel in India, and buses, of course. And buses, we still don't have proper, you know, certain municipalities have bought electric buses, but we don't have proper charging infrastructure. So this battery solution is an opportunity. And I said both the partners in India of Sun are in Durban, so maybe there's something there, which is Piaggio and Leyland.
Yeah, Lyal, you want to react on that, but mobility? Then we'll jump to another. Yeah.
I just one thing that we must always think about in the South African context is mobility in the cities versus mobility between cities, and you've got huge migration in Southern Africa as well. So there's a different area. So we've got very, very bad transport over longer distances. Very unsafe, very for various reasons. But and there's a massive opportunity there but this extends just outside the borders. I mean, there's a very high level of mobility in particular areas at times of the year. And so that's something that really should be considered. And so we should distinguish between inner city mobility and mobility servicing.
Intercity, yeah. Are three-wheelers a thing in South Africa or not really?
No, George, it's a very, very good question because people have tried to introduce them. It's quite a novelty, though.
Okay.
I must admit, I've even looked into some of these things. It becomes quite a novelty. So sometimes, many, many years ago, 1 or 2 taxi agencies brought them in and they used them. They were very effective, and then they just kind of faded out. I suppose it was just maybe the maintenance of them, which is probably easier now, given kind of more global supply chains, etc. But they're not really that well used, and it is something that could be considered. But I think also even it goes hand in hand. In many African countries, just two-wheel motorbikes are actually forms of taxis, and they're very, very effective, like they are in other parts of Asia. But we haven't looked at that in any great detail. And once again, it's something that is, it's one of these kind of cultural kind of snag wires that we have, and that we've got to try and look at.
Yeah, you want to go from a bike, you want to go from a motorcycle to a car.
Yeah, and it's people do kind of prefer the minibus type of options. And then even the bus system in South Africa is relatively, the big bus system is relatively poor. The train systems have been completely eroded. There's so much footage now of the breakdown of train stations, because that used to be a massive form of transport. But so buses and trains, intercity buses and trains are not great. Once again, it's not just the intercity and the long distances, it's actually these hail transport options do not exist in small towns in South Africa. So the likes of Uber and Bolt, and then there's 1 or 2 other South African ones, they don't exist outside of the metropolitan areas, which is a really, really big problem. Because once again, a little bit of an opportunity.
So maybe because we are close to the end, we can maybe talk a little about housing. I see Matoke is here. He's working on the housing industry. We said this morning with Stephen and other speakers, it's housing about Matoke shared about affordability, safety. From the exploration they made with his team, it's also a question of people don't like to share areas sometimes, and they have also some issues on the financial long-term engagement to finance these houses. And Stephen said about gypsum can be used for housing instead of cement, calcine fluorite also as a waste materials, and trees and so on. So maybe you have Lyal, an opinion about where this housing is going, industry, or how people could own their house, or
the housing thing is a very complicated matter in South Africa. Again, many of your topics that you've chosen are entrenched in, or these are a good topic. They've got, they've always got. There's always a very, very important political story behind many of these, and so the housing thing is important. But it's also, you must also understand that the cost of these initiatives are extremely high, and they've increased cost-wise in South Africa. So we need cheaper innovations that will be coming from other parts of the world, perhaps in this space. But people, it also. It's a difficult one. The modular options, the cheaper modular options that are coming about through low-cost housing would be something that I would actually look at. And then again, it's something that you have to engage with on the municipal levels. So each municipality will deal with it very, very differently, and it goes hand in hand with waste management.
Maybe some reactions, and Matoke also, if you want to react, ask questions.
I don't have any question at the moment, but I like the idea of also engaging with the various municipalities to engage with them with the idea and see how they can assist in that process. Thank you.
Well, with Albon, we did something for a major real estate school in France. And there was outreach to the smaller communities to try and come up with innovative housing solutions. And, you know, it goes hand in hand with the sort of creating a more livable urban space. So it's, you know, the smaller mayors. We actually had a mayor from one of the towns outside Paris, and there seems to be opportunity. You know, it's like Lyal said, you have to engage with the local communities and try and find some common ground where everybody's interests are served. But and as Lyal said, there are lots of low-cost housing technologies and systems outside that you might be able to borrow or partner with.
And so using waste as a material, as a brick.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work done all over the world with using various forms of brick or even waste plastic to create composite bricks that can, you know, one of them looks almost like a Lego. You just sort of slot them in and you build a house. So, yeah.
So, and to conclude, maybe some few words about education. We said, yeah, this morning, internet brings access to the world, and social media can be an issue because there's a cognitive bias. People can be put at the same level, considering at the same level a scientist or a professor than an influencer on YouTube. Or, and so there is something, like Stephen said, to make engineers or scientists in South Africa more aware and more trained, knowing more about the water and waste sides. He said we need scientists feeling concerned by the recycling, drinking water, waste. So, and also politics, we said politics also, to have more involvement, engagement. So what do you think of that? Lyal, yeah, you have an opinion?
I just lost you in the second part of that, Alvin. Just can you mention?
Education. This morning, Stephen said he shared about education that there are some problems because people know globally on the world they put on the same level, consider the same level internet or what they got from the university, the knowledge from scientists and so on, and social media now can be an issue for just for people to understand the world where they are living in, and also about water and waste. He said that chemical engineers, for instance, are not really involved and not very concerned by water and waste, and it's a pity, especially for South Africa. It's also the same for politics. So he proposed to try to change that.
Yeah, look, I think the education space, or if you call it one of the industries, I think this is one of them that is a little bit more open and democratized, and it's a little bit easier to do because it's happening. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I think given the demographic across Africa, so it starts with South Africa, and we've always been a little bit slow at adopting new approaches to education in South Africa. We're quite entrenched in very traditional approaches to education. So the notion of adopting some type of education through social media platforms is interesting for us. But there's two things that I just want to mention in the context of South Africa and Africa. The first one is last mile education is going to be important. And what I mean by that, we hear about last mile retail and all these things, but last mile education is going to be important. And it's a new thing for people seeking education. The other thing is also, we've got this very, very odd obsession with traditional forms of education. I hazard a guess that George, in India, you suffer the same problems, although yeah, it is, and it's a very strange. It's not fit for purpose in South Africa. So we'll have these highfalutin degrees and these very strange courses. I come out of that world. I was the dean of a business school. I have been with universities for many years. I've left that world, not entirely. I still serve on the board of Association of African Business Schools. But my mission is really to provide access to inclusive education across the African continent through online solutions. But having said that, we've got a big problem. We don't have connectivity freely available across many parts of Africa, and especially in the rural parts of South Africa. Now, that means if you're talking education, you've got to talk about the entire value chain and ensuring everybody is connected. And there's these fantastic initiatives underway. Project Seasware, for example, is providing low-cost access to rural parts of South Africa. HeroTel is a company that has been launched in Stellenbosch that is also its primary target and focus is on connectivity in outside of metropolitan areas. And many, if you read their strategies, much of this is around training and education. So what we see now, and it's unfortunately not always South African entities and South African entrepreneurs that are coming up with these solutions, but others are coming in. And I sincerely believe that these new forms of education will, especially higher education, will displace the old traditional approaches in the interest of democratizing education and providing access to inclusive, high quality education across the continent. And I think it's going to be a very exciting time. I'm literally seeing it unfold before our eyes, evaluating different platforms that might work with lighter data or low, and then also making sure that platforms or the platforms that people are developing also browser friendly. So because everybody thinks that because there's this ubiquitous notion of kind of mobile telephones across Africa and then the rise of smartphones, that people will they'll do their programs and educate themselves on their smartphone. That is true to some degree, but right now, as we speak, people still want to do it on a browser, on a computer. It's quite interesting. So you kind of need to be mindful of that transition. And then the final point is that it's a culture of education, and we're going to be so this goes back to that whole building off the social media, etc. Is that people are now much more interested in that last mile education, but also not only that, it's also the micro learning and literally doing a program that is not going to be a few weeks in the process, but from 45 minutes to 3 hours, and it builds off just that initial knowledge, that initial interest and knowledge that will come through that, and that becomes quite interesting. So I think this is an area that is potentially has got huge potential. But the other thing is, the final point is, with this change of education and the needs of the continent and the needs of the country, we need to be mindful that it's often high touch, low tech, because we always think about edutech as being very technology driven. That should be driven by the educator and by what the people want in the area of education. So this is really in my sweet spot of interest and what I'm working on at the moment. And I'm working with a range of different entrepreneurs. So while I said that there's a lot of outsiders coming into South Africa doing this, we have actually developed at the level of primary, secondary, and even tertiary education in South Africa, very, very interesting models, but we have not yet reached the population that I would want us to reach. And those are usually the population that have been completely excluded from conventional education in the past, and mostly by geography, not just by historical circumstances, by geography. They're not able to go to the types of schools or have access to higher education. And I believe that we can do that now through some form of connectivity.
Interesting. Thanks. Maybe Bongikosi and Vinny, entrepreneurs who are working on this education field, you can maybe if you want to ask question or react. Don't know if you are here. Bongikosi and Vinny. Yeah, so maybe it's not available.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a complete rethink in education. I mean, the value proposition globally has changed, and it isn't the no-brainer as it used to be. I spent 3 years in working on a US White House project of trying to figure out the future of education in the States. And the proposals that we made, which is to make it much more inclusive, much more part of an ongoing lifetime education, much more part of a skills and theory-based education, and ones that where one can still earn money while being educated, were met with widespread opposition from the traditional education institutions to their not to their benefit, to be honest. I think the only school that has really approached this differently as far as tertiary education is the Arizona State University, whose dean I used to work with at Columbia University, has been able to try to flip the classroom and make it much more, the time spent in the classroom much more effective and much more beneficial to students. So I think this is what needs to happen with this team that I spoke to yesterday. It'll be very important to really challenge the institutions, and they will have to change eventually, but it might be better to change them first.
Yeah, maybe just to close the session, we can ask I know Bongi Kosi, if you want to open your microphone and tell us, just to tell us about your ideas you got from explorations and what the result you had from exploration with your interviews. You made a lot of interviews with non-users, non-customers. So maybe Lyal can react on your result, and can be useful for you if you. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Alvin, thank you for the platform. So I just got back from a meeting right now, but I have one question, because I had the gentleman talking about connectivity stuff and all of that. So from the exploration, like I said yesterday, an idea of, writing of examinations without, the hassle of network issues caused by load shedding is something that needs to be taken into an account. So what I need to understand is, from the technology perspective, would it be actually possible for a platform that can accommodate students with regards to examinations, like writing examinations without even or being connected? Actually, would it be possible to
offline? You said yesterday offline, working offline, to be independent of the network.
Yes, because I feel like it doesn't matter even if universities do provide data to students from like rural areas or urban. Still, if there's load shedding, that's going to be a problem. Still, they won't be able to write. So the solution in that case would be to make such things offline. So my question is, how can that be built? I just want to understand that in the technology perspective.
Can I quickly comment on that, Alvin?
Of course, also, Diana.
Yeah, this is a question that has come up. So obviously, I'm an educationist, so I talk to the tech people in how we are developing some of our platforms for online education and edutech. The first thing first is, as educationalists or education, and I speak for private education and for other public education, is we've got to rethink and reimagine how we're going to actually examine, because the examinations are still trapped in kind of a defunct era. I've been trying to change this for the last few years in the various business schools that I work with, and we have changed it. So it's a mindset change that academics or those or any type of learner needs to actually change that mindset on how we do it. And in line with that, most of the platforms that I've looked at that are equipped for delivery, and I'm not talking about the traditional old school ones, like Canvas or Blackboard, they do accommodate for evaluations and for examinations, but most of the new ones that are designed for our devices, our tablets and our mobile phones, actually have an examination function to them, but they are done in a very, very different way to the way we traditionally examine people in South Africa. So we've got to kind of update the way we think, but then at the same time, we've got to check the technology. And any technology, any platform can be designed for your purpose, can be designed to accommodate what you need to do. And then you're talking about whether you can do this offline. You can definitely do it offline. It can be very, very light. You can do it browser friendly, but you can also do it very, very light in that you download these at a particular hub, and then you are able to do it in such a way that you can complete the examination. But there's a number of prerequisites in terms of mindset change and how you examine, and then evaluation of the right platform that will allow you to actually examine it. Thanks. Thanks, Bong.
Yeah, I think that's very impressive, because looking at how things are done this side, and through the research I've recently made, we don't have such platforms. So that is why it really causes so many inconveniences to so many students, because one thing is that universities do want to come up with this kind of a solution, and also at the same time they do not want students to cheat or plagiarize. So you find that there's these invigilator apps which requires students to be connected to a network, you see. So having this invigilation systems, and also that platform where they can write their examinations offline, or like everything being offline, would be just great. Like that whole package in one platform, not in different platforms, but in one platform. That would be very much incredible on this side. So thank you very much, sir, for that. Yes. I just wanted to understand that. Yes.
And we can engage more on this, because it's actually an ongoing kind of, and obviously the pandemic has accelerated our thinking, and the developers already also starting to get up to speed. Interestingly, after this meeting, I've got a meeting with a developer specifically on this topic to talk about what my needs are in a platform that we're developing for an edutech platform. So it's so interesting that they're just popping up all over. And I wanted to also say that while I was quite critical of the response of South Africa on these issues, I'm quite impressed with the creativity that is coming out in South Africa around the developers of education, and they're going to learn they're going to catch on very, very quickly. So that bodes well for us. I do want to add that you spoke about students at universities. Universities speak rhetorically about helping students and doing this, and it's not the university's fault, but they are very slow to adjust their way of thinking. And sometimes it's going to take people like you and I to actually keep on nudging them. It's like a little bit like chipping away at this kind of this granite wall to eventually get some type of movement, because universities need to change the way they actually examine the students. And we're not trying to teach them in this conventional way of like memorizing. Unfortunately, we actually just, in the end, just an arbitrary kind of example. There's a platform that I looked at that has been developed in the United States, but it's mostly for a device that's a handheld device. So it's very fit for purpose for Africa. It's been used across Central America and other parts of Latin America. So I was looking at their device, very, very cheap, very, very easy to use, cheap. It's used in the military training. It's used in sports training. Very impressive. And then I asked him about the examination, exactly the way you asked me about this. And there's a downloadable thing, but the examination is actually so simple that you don't just get marked right or wrong. If you get certain questions, this is just as an example of how we can start thinking about the mindset shift in examination. You engage with the students in such a way that you can only progress to the next stage if you actually get certain questions correct. And it's up to the tutor or the faculty member, myself, to look at how many, because often it's a huge number of people that are getting the question incorrect. But you have to check it why it is incorrect, and it often might be because it wasn't explained correctly in the course. So you have to go back to that, address that, and that's comprehensive learning, because then you're actually helping the student get through to the next phase. I know it might be time, it might be a time-consuming exercise, but that's why you maybe also just examine in smaller chunks of the work, so that you can actually. So you've got to rethink the examination that will be fit for what we are doing in the online kind of delivery and the online platform. And it's different to the way we did it conventionally in the contact. So that's just another example that I have at the moment. Yeah.
And that's very insightful, sir. Thank you very much for that.
I think it's a good conclusion. Well, thank you a lot, Lyal, for your time and very impressive thoughts and sharings you gave us today. It was, I think, a good overview on all the topics and all the insight we got from these sessions yesterday and today. And thanks a lot to give perspective and also very practical options to the entrepreneurs. So thanks a lot, Lyal, and we'll be very glad to have you. Of course, if you want to continue, you shared your email and your contact with the entrepreneurs to support them in the next step. There will be prototyping. There will be also the jury, if you would like to join the jury, the final jury on the 22nd of February.
I'd love to join. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'd love to be involved in any which way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Lyal. And thank you, Jason, for connecting us with Lyal. Great. We'll now have a pause, the lunch pause for 1 hour. We'll come back at 2 p.m. and to start the ideation workshop. We'll just take 5 minutes to show you how to proceed, and you will be in groups. And each coaches and Jason, George, me, we will jump in your groups to give you some guidelines and to support you in your ideation process. And please, if you can join, maximum of you can join at 5. We'll have the founder of Anti-Cafe, Leonid Goncharov. He's a very, very inspiring to entrepreneurs. It's a very good entrepreneurs, like I call him the French Elon Musk. It's quite famous in France. He have made a very big chain of cafe, but it's called Anti-Cafe. It broke the rules of the classical cafe. So it would be very inspiring for you with 1 hour exchange. So thanks again a lot, Lyal, for your time and your sharings. They're very nice, very, very interesting. And let's meet all at 2 p.m. here on the same link.
Alban.
Yes.
Before we close, I need to know how can I contact Mr. Lyal?
We'll share his contact. He said we'll share his email. Maybe Jason can share his email. You can say to Jason, and he will put you in touch. Each of you want to contact. Yeah. Okay. You just post it. Perfect.
I'll just post it here.
He just posted. Okay, cozy.
Oh, he just posted on. Oh, okay. Okay.
In the chat.
Thank you very much.
You have his email. Yeah. Perfect. See you in 1 hour. Have a good lunch.
You too.